Good morning. Are we all ready? We have nobody from the public today. Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a workshop, March 10th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Ms. Brock, I know this meeting was advertised in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act.
Yes, ma'am, it was.
All right. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
All right, motion by Tab, a second by Mr. Bassett. Great.
I think he just let me make the motion this time.
Did we have anybody sign up for public comment? I don't see anybody here.
No, ma'am, we didn't.
All right. And we have one council member on the train.
On the train?
Yes.
Train?
Yeah. Mr. Glover.
Oh.
He's on the train to Pittsburgh, I think. Who else? Is Larry going? And David. Is Larry going to join us? Do you know?
No, ma'am, I've not heard from Councilmember
Somebody's on their
McAllen.
iPhone. Who's that?
That's
probably
Councilmember Glover.
That's York.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Let's start with the first one, which is gap insurance for retirees update, and that's going to be Ms. Mead, or yeah, or do you want to kick it off?
Quick comments. Yes. Good morning, Madam Chair and Council. Thank you all. I know it was a short turnaround last night from the meeting to this morning, but it's important for staff to discuss these items that are all budget related as we're moving into the budget. So we have guidance, direction to answer your questions as we put the budget together, and this gives us an opportunity to make any changes or additions you all might want to see from these discussions. So the first several are going to be HR for the gap insurance, health insurance fund update, and the merit pay, and then we're going to have others that are going to come in as well for PLT cash out. That'll be Mr. Robinson, as well as for the detention center, and then stormwater fund will have Mr. Fralix, and Parks and Rec will have Ms. Antonaci Audra for that. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started with the gap insurance. So I'll invite Catherine up if there's any questions prior to that.
Anybody have any questions? No?
About our intentions for today, yeah.
Yes.
All right, so perfect. Thank you, Sarah. We have a PowerPoint presentation, and there's 3 items, as Mike mentioned. I put everything in one presentation to give these lovely staff a break of swapping from one show to the other. So we're going to start with our retiree health insurance.
Make sure it's on, sorry, on the side. I didn't check.
It's on.
Okay, point
Yeah.
this way.
To you.
Right.
Never know where to point it. Yeah, look.
Do you want us to let you do the presentation and then questions at the end? Ms. Mead, do you want us to have questions at the end, or do you want us to, which is easy?
Probably the end, because
Okay.
this is your workshop, so I don't have a lot of talking to do. I'm just going to give you some facts and some data points, and then we can open that up for your questions and comments, if that's
Okay,
good with you all.
Mm-hmm.
Did we get it?
Yep.
Okay, there we go. Was it on? Okay, sorry. I wanted to just briefly go over the history of the program. I know when we spoke about this last, a couple council members, well, probably several of you weren't here when we had the retiree insurance before, and there were still some questions. So I thought it's important to kind of always talk about the land of what we've done in the past, and to refresh your memories of the retiree health insurance. In 2004, we made effective a retiree health insurance plan, a supplemental plan for retirees, in addition to providing a monthly contribution stipend towards that coverage based on their years of service when they were with the county. Shortly after, it looks like, doing some research on these resolutions, it didn't change the program, it just further defined what is financial assistance, what is a health care benefit, total premium, and qualified recipient, all within the same year of 2004. In 2008, Council had passed a resolution to amend the program. Effective immediately, all county employees who begin their employment on or after June 1, 2008 shall not be eligible to receive the benefits. So we grandfathered those in, but ended the program for any newly onboarded employees. In 2016, the program ended altogether, even for those that were grandfathered in. The reasons that were listed in the resolution as to why was a couple factors. One, the annual cost was $2.8 million at the time. The GASB 45 financial statement reporting requiring total amount of unfunded liabilities related to providing the benefit resulted in a detrimental effect to the county's credit rating. And that is also when the ACA was put into place at the federal level, which did provide more access to retirees to gain affordable coverage. So I believe that would have been the decisions for council at the time as to why they removed the program. So what we talked about with you guys back in, I believe, October, we had our insurance broker come down to talk about another program that we could consider implementing, the Retiree Health Insurance Reimbursement Arrangement Program. So this is a defined contribution, a monthly stipend, to reimburse members for health insurance, where these retirees would go obtain their own health insurance through the marketplace, and we would provide a reimbursement stipend for them through a third-party administrator. This provides greater control over annual cost and reduces exposure to our own medical inflation risk, because as you know, we are self-funded, so we're our own insurance company. We pay our own claims. We know that as we age, our claim cost gets more expensive, so this controls that cost for us on that front. And we also talked about this being a prospective program as of July 1, 2026, moving forward. The criteria is quite simple. You have to be pre-65. The program will end at age 65 when they become Medicare eligible. The retiree must be PEBA retirement eligible by PEBA's standards. And the employee has to have at least 15 years of service with Beaufort County at the time of their retirement. So they can't have 20 years built into PEBA with the school district, so to speak. They come here for 5 years and get this benefit. They have to be with us at least the last 15 years of their tenure. We provided 2 options to you back in October. We're now narrowing that down to 1 recommended option for your consideration. So the years of service, we're looking at 15 to 20.99 years of service to be eligible for a $300 monthly stipend, 21 to 27.99 years of service for a $400 stipend, and 28 or more years of service for a $500 monthly stipend. Please keep in mind there is an admin cost of $3.50 per month per retiree. One thing I would say that we should probably think about is inflation going over the years. We could consider adding something in our policy to the effect of the RHRA stipend may be adjusted annually based on the Social Security cost of living adjustment, not to exceed 3% in any fiscal year. This again allows us to have control over the cost. So when trying to forecast what is this going to look like in year 1 forward, I went through our retiree data and pulled some census reports for you all. This is looking at retirees back to 2015 through date that would have been eligible under those 3 criteria marks that I mentioned earlier. So pre-65, 15 years service, PEBA eligible. And we have had an average of 12 retirees fit that category over the last 10 years. Of those 12, the average years of service that they had with Beaufort County is 24 years of service. And their average age was 57. So that kind of gives us a participation forecast here, where we have an average retirement of 57, benefits ending at age 65, meaning the average duration of being in the RHRA program is 8 years, with an average annual count of 12 retirees, with a years of service of 24 years, which puts them in that tier 2 of $400 per month, plus your $350 monthly admin fee. And we can expect a mature steady state population of 96 participants. And for those of you that were in the October workshop, you may recall we were mentioning the number 94, because as of date, if we were going to go retro, we did have 94 participants. So I thought that number matched up very well with what our forecast is over the next 8 years. We can expect 96 participants to be eligible for this program. and that's where we'll have our steady state. So how do we budget for that? Simple math here with just using what we can forecast and expect for the first year with 12 new participants joining the program. At that average 400 tier level, we can expect it to be around 58,000. And then I've given you what the next 8 years will look like till we get to full participation. Now, you may want to consider bumping that first year up a little because, again, these projections are solely based on historical patterns where there was not a program available. Unfortunately, I don't have a crystal ball to forecast when this program launches who's going to say, oh, well, I'm now ready, and that average 12 count increases. I would expect that to happen. So I would say you might want to consider us budgeting a little higher in year one to get us a couple years under our belt to have good data so we can adjust those numbers accordingly. So perhaps we can consider the first year doing an anticipation of 18 retirees at the highest level, so worst case scenario. And that's going to be looking at about 108,000 for year one. And I just kind of recapped here, these forecasts is considering an average of 12 retirements per year at the age of 57 with 24 years of service, assuming that they are eligible to remain in the program for 8 years. But I will open that up to you, Chair Lady, of how we would like to.
We're ready for questions. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. So what happens if I'm here and pretend I was only 57, which is long past? What happens if I have a spouse that has insurance coverage? Am I still eligible for this?
You would be eligible for it, but if you decide to go on your spouse's plan, you are not. So we're not going to give you a reimbursement for you to have if you're covered under your spouse's plan. You're going to have to show the administrator, the third-party administrator, that you have secured your own insurance.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Anyone else? Question? Yes.
Excellent presentation. I do agree with you that we should start off with a larger sum of money because if it isn't used, you just roll it over to the next year and have a starting point a little bit higher.
Oh, the breakdown for 3, 4, and 500 is, and then you talked about the 3%. Is that going to be automatic or does that have to be voted on by future councils?
If it's written in the policy, would that be?
Try to bind a future council, but you could make it either way.
I guess that would be my only recommendation, is that something that should be talked about by future councils year on year, just like we do the 3% COLA to approve it.
Yeah.
Because what if insurance is flat that year? What if it doesn't change? What if there's a new program that comes out? We really don't know.
Yeah, just keep in mind that just like occurred previously, a future council may decide to go away with this program.
If we have a recession, all bets are off, something like that. Is it, oh, yes, sir.
I was just going to say a thought is if you could tie it to the COLAs, if that's something, Catherine, just for consideration.
Mm-hmm.
Like if council votes a COLA, that could
if
be.
we approve a COLA,
that could
we
be
would
part of
approve.
that. That was just a suggestion.
A future council.
But yes.
Yeah, well, the word was may. And
Right,
that
I went
means
back to that.
The future council has to do it every single year.
Right.
You know,
And then
that's what our council does every single year with the paid leave.
Absolutely.
We make that decision.
And with that caveat there, I mean, we could add something to your point, pending council approval. You know, we can play with that language,
That would be my
however.
only recommendation. Other than that, I think it's good.
It could be part of the budget process because it's going to be budgeted every year.
It's going to be budgeted every year.
Right.
I had a question. The average age 57, is that skewed by the sheriff's department? Okay.
Yes. That's where the majority of really your
Under retiree.
eligible folks are going to be as sheriff.
Yeah, because they can, 30 years and.
And you'll see the average
25
years of
years.
service is 24, and they're eligible at 25. So most likely they had employment elsewhere before they came here.
Sure.
But yeah, the 57 and 24 was very telling to me that most of
What's
that's
the,
going to be cores.
Fire districts, the different fire districts.
We don't process, they're not in our retirement plans. I'm not sure. I didn't
Okay.
pull their data.
I didn't think they were, but I just wanted to ask.
They're still under PORS, I believe. John, is that right? Fire is under the PORS system. So likely, they're probably going to be very similar to this.
That brings up a good point. If a firefighter or a deputy retires and then goes back to work, are they to be covered and get a stipend? Or if they're insured through their new employer, are they not eligible for the stipend?
What I'm proposing is they are only eligible for the stipend if they have secured their own private insurance through the marketplace or other private company, not employer provided or spouse employer provided. This is just a stipend for
It's
those.
just the ones that are going on the market for their own
Right.
insurance.
No, but just to be clear, like, if they retire from here and decide to work after that, and they don't have insurance with that company, we would still provide this stipend.
If they have
Okay,
obtained
I just to make sure, 'cause I
insurance.
mean,
Yes.
encouraging people to hit the workforce is
Oh,
a goal.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, yes. As long, if they are having to purchase private insurance, it's not an employer-provided sponsored plan, they are eligible for that, even though that they may have returned to work.
And I like your example of like a teacher, because they're under, if they move over to the county, because their insurance is the state system, yeah, and so they wouldn't be eligible unless they worked 15 years. Okay. Any other questions, or we want to move on to the
No,
next?
just one other comment. I think you should make the decision as to how much you believe should be the first year and put it in the budget.
We'll work with Pinky on that.
And the comment there is that's the risk,
If
because
I-
we don't know how many people may see this and decide, well, I'm going to retire this year. So that's why we would add a little bit,
Yeah.
as what Catherine suggested.
Do we see at any point, it could be, like, for example, if somebody works at Lowe's or Kroger, or any big store, they offer health insurance options, but does it mean that those people work enough to qualify for it if they're retired?
Part-time, I
So
think.
they still fall within our purview that we could still supply it if they choose not to take it?
Correct.
Okay.
If they are able to show proof through our third-party administrator, which, by the way, we really would like to have a TPA help administer this.
Oh, yes.
Then they have to provide that proof that they have secured their own insurance through, whether it be a marketplace or wherever else, and it's confirmed that it's not employer-provided, they will be eligible. As long as they met the other criteria, they're pre-65, they were here for 15 years, and they are a true retiree with the state retirement system. Yes.
All right. Any other comments, questions?
Pinky, do you have a comment?
Yes, I do. If you are not wanting to bind future councils, then we need to make this a part of the budget process annually, and you approve it in the budget ordinance.
Sounds good.
That's what we'll plan on, I
Yeah.
think, is what we're hearing, is it be tied to annual appropriations. Okay.
Right.
All right, we'll move. Are you doing the next one too, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Get my- Okay. All right, so the next item we're bringing forward is to talk about trying to transition your brains here. We're moving away from the retirees. We are talking about current workforce health insurance benefits. So we have a self-funded health insurance update we'd like to share with you all. And again, I'd just like to give a little 30, 60-second history of where we are and how we got here. So Beaufort County transitioned from a fully insured health plan to a self-funded model on July 1st, 2016. The 2016 fully insured renewal was initially quoted at $16.2 million. Our administrator has been Blue Cross Blue Shield throughout the duration of these years. For those that were on council, you may remember, I think USI actually came and spoke to you then, that when Blue Cross Blue Shield learned that we were considering to go self-funded, their quote changed very quickly to be flat for the year, but they originally quoted us at $16.2 million. After transitioning to self-funded, we ended up having around $12.5 million of claims, so we made a very wise decision to move to self-funded, and also understood why Blue Cross Blue Shield had come back very quickly to flat their quote versus inflate it by $2.5 million.
Checks out.
So we had an approximate savings of $3.6 million during that first year. Recently, county administration with HR, Mr. Moore, Ms. Wood, Pinky, and some other members of finance and HR met with our benefits broker just to do a deep dive health review. It's been 10 years. Should we look at what going back to fully funded looks like in today's time? Should we look at going into PEBA's health insurance plan? So we did that. We got a lot of good data, and it was very obvious that we need to stay as a self-funded plan. Going back to fully insured, I think, I didn't bring the numbers with me, but it was well over 20 million. I think is what they were quoting us for that. And then PEBA, I think most of us know a lot of people are moving away from PEBA. So there were some concerns and red flags there as well. So we do believe staying as a self-funded plan is the best decision for the county. Let's see. This is a snapshot of what our projections have been since being self-funded and what we actually our claims came out to be at the end of each fiscal year. And I'm sorry, that's very small. I hope you have your printed packets with you, but you can see that over the years, based on what was projected and what we actually spent, we've come in the top really about 2.9. Now, I know there's been some different opinions of what was projected and what we should budget, so it didn't quite work out that way with what we actually budgeted, but what we projected has been about a $2.9 million savings over the 10 years. What we've done in the last 5 years is we've done a dependent verification audit, which is ongoing maintenance. We did an employee contribution increase in '24. We did a spousal surcharge in '24. And we've also implemented a few different pharmacy savings programs in '23 and in '25. So some current considerations we'd like to talk about with, that we're still talking with USI. We're evaluating what actual medical services we are providing as a self-insured fund, just to make sure it is aligned with your standard policies. We've identified a couple services that are favorable and above and beyond that we are removing from our plan, so there will be proper communications going out to employees about the removals of those services. But it wasn't much more than about 2 or 3 services. So once we get those off our plan, that's going to help our cost, and we will be very aligned with what PEBA is offering and other employers are offering for a standard employer-sponsored health insurance plan. We've assessed the employee versus employer contribution structure to ensure long-term sustainability. And we're going to talk with you all today about what your thoughts are and what you would like as a council to see as the employer-employee contribution ratio for the county health plan. And based on that decision, we will talk about the implementation of some strategies and some phase-out plans to meet the desires of council with the ratio. So the next slide again, sorry if it's a little small, but this is just to give you a snapshot of what our current monthly contribution plan looks like. We've talked about this a few times in council, so this may not be a shock to you, but we do offer 2 different types of health insurance plans. We have a premium plan and a basic plan. The services within those plans are the same. So the prescriptions included, the surgeries included, nothing changes there. What's different is how much is the employee paying out of their pocket through payroll contributions, and then what is the deductible and the out-of-pocket maximum. So the premium plan, while it's a higher out-of-pocket cost with payroll contributions, it's lower for the employee in terms of out-of-pocket maximums and deductibles. And then on the opposite spectrum of that, for basic, you're paying a little less out of your pocket as the employee through payroll contribution, but your deductible and your out-of-pocket maximum is a little higher. So it's really standard to have 2 different types of plans to offer. So I wouldn't recommend changing that. Within those plans,
I was just going to comment on the employee only and the employer only. You can on the 2 plans. I'm sorry, the premium and basic. The percent paid by employer is quite different. One's 79.4 with the premium, and with the basic, it's 92%. So the county's paying 92% for the basic and 79.4 for the premium. So I just wanted you all to understand that, because we're going to talk about ratios moving forward.
yes. Within those plans, we have different tiers of who has coverage. So you can cover the employee only. The employee can elect to cover their spouse, their children, or the family coverage, which includes spouse and children. We're a little unique that we go a step further when you see small and large and you wonder what that is. If it's labeled as small, that means it's 1 or 2 children on the plan. A large group is 3 or more children on the plan. And so there's a little difference in the cost because we have more belly buttons that we're covering under this plan. The grade column that you see in the middle of the page, that is the premium equivalence total for employee and employer. And then to Mr. Moore's point, we then break out to show you each plan and each coverage level, how much is the employee paying monthly versus the employer, and what that ratio looks like. So the green highlight at the bottom of each section is your annual bottom line. So in our premium plan, to Mr. Moore's point, we are just about at an 80-20 split with the premiums of employer versus employee monthly contributions. Bottom line on your basic plan is around a 91.3 versus 8.7 split, so 92-8 split for your basic. The total plan overall is the yellow highlight at the bottom, and that's around an 89 or 90-10 split. Some benchmark of what other employers are doing for monthly contribution percentages. The first two columns is our basic and premium. Column 3 is telling you that PBA's standard plan, their contribution split for a single coverage, which is our employee only, is around an 85-15 split. Other county governments is around a 91-9, and other entities in this benchmark with 1,000+ employees is around 80-20. Employee and spouse coverage benchmark, we're focusing on basic plan, we're about a 91-9, whereas PBA's at 82. County government 82, and other 1,000+ employees is 71. And then you can see what the children rates are and the family rates. So what we'd like to hear from you all, I've got a couple slides to go through, is what is council's goal for a contribution ratio? If you're wanting to go steer towards an 80-20 contribution ratio, we already got some numbers in place. There's a separate backup document that we can pull up here shortly if you'd like to look at the weeds of the matter, so to speak, but I'm just giving you a highlight overview of this. So our projected health plan costs for employee and employer, total cost for FY27 is $19.2 million. If the goal is to move towards an 80-20 split, it's recommended to do this in a 5-year phased plan, because it is going to take several good hits, and we want to spread that out so we're not alarming our workforce too terribly. What that would look like is in year 1, we'll do around a 33% increase for the employee contributions, and that will result in about a 3.5% increase for the employer. So I've broken that down for you to see that of that $19.2 million that I referenced above, the employer will come out around 16.7 and the employee about 2.4 million, which gets us to an 87.2 versus 12.8 split. Year 2, 3, 4, very similar. The end goal is to get us to year 5, FY31. At that point in time, consider a medical trend of increase in cost. We're anticipating about a $23.3 million plan. And the way we'll split that up in year 5 is the employer to be at 80% coverage of 18.7, employee at 20% coverage at 4.6.
Can you go back to the other slide for a second? No, all the way back there. So right now, for the premium, we're 80-20.
Correct.
So is it the goal to focus on making changes to the basic plan to bring that into an 80-20 split?
Yes, and that there's another backup document that really shows you it's basically the same information as this for each year that you're looking at.
And if I may, Catherine, I believe most of our employees are on the basic. Is that by far?
Yep, there's a count here. So there's 1,027 employees on basic and only 147 employees on premium. And you got to be careful how you proportion it and roll it out, because you do things too quick, too fast, people are going to start migrating, and then you're losing healthy risk. So there's a methodical way to do that, and we have a very detailed 5-year phase plan to meet the goal.
Which that was provided by USI.
It was.
These 2 plans.
Okay. No, that seemed logical to me. Okay.
I have a question. What's our current deficit/surplus in our self-insured plan right now?
Vicki, do you have that information?
Ballpark?
For current year?
Yep.
At the end of fiscal year '25, after the audit, it was a little over $5 million
Deficit or surplus?
deficit.
Oh, just thought I'd ask.
I have a comment. We have Blue Cross Blue Shield supplemental, and it seems like every year, whatever we get in our COLA ends up how much our health insurance goes up. So I don't know, I mean, that, it worries, it doesn't worry me, but it's kind of a fact of life, you know?
For sure. For sure. And you know, we did a climate survey that we presented to, and you're hearing from your staff that they're staying here for the benefits. So that is definitely something to consider as we start increasing these costs. We want to make sure either their merit or COLA's kind of, it doesn't have to meet it, but it should certainly keep up with it.
Councilman Passman.
You said many of the entities are leaving PIBA. Where are they going to? Other insurers or
Self-insured.
self-insurance?
Self-insured.
Is there any thought process of doing some consortiums for insurance?
I can tell you that, if I may, SCAC is looking at that. They've looked at several
My point.
counties, and they've reached out to us to look at our program as well.
I know that they're looking at the Tier 1 counties to see if there is some sort of consortium that can be done to, you know, make a large group that would become very attractive.
And frankly, you know, for SCAC, we're one of the larger counties that's in this situation, so they're very interested in how we're proceeding.
This is a question for Pinky. What percentage of our budget is in the insurance, if you know, I mean, roughly?
Of our overall budget? Well, you'd have to split it out by fund because the special revenue funds and the enterprise funds pay for themselves. So for general fund, it will be separate, but I don't know it off the top of my head, but I'll find it.
Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah.
Councilman.
Breakdown wise, I know if you can go back to that last slide you had. All right, so the increase of $2.2 million over the course of 5 years. Average breakdown looked like number one was employee spouse. How much more a year is that actually going to raise their cost?
If I may, could I go through the last slide here, and then we can open up that document?
Because I think you're
that's
going to get to the
cover that.
spousal surcharge, right?
Yes, that's in
Okay.
our the separate document. I talked about 80/20. If council's desire is 85/15, we can probably knock that out in 2 years. And you can see the breakdown here of FY27. We'll still look at the 87/12 split, and then FY28 for year 2 will get us to that 85/15. But if Sarah, could you pull up, there was a backup document in the second item of the agenda.
While she's pulling that up,
Yeah.
just my biggest fear is if this is our goal to go to the 80/20, then for the next 5 years, all of our merit-based and COLA is worthless.
Yeah, that's kind of
So-
my point about the COLA.
Yeah, so if we're really stressing over the fact of $2 million in our budget over that, we're not even rewarding our employees for the next 5 years for this new policy that we just put in place. So to me, it's kind of counterproductive. We're just moving one money to another place. It's a shell game.
So conversely, because I love to argue with Logan, a 92-8 split is very unsatisfactory to me. In the private sector, we strive for 80/20. I'm speaking from my experience. So when the public sees 92/8, I think some of them would a little bit freak out. So I get his point, but I think we need to bring ours in line, and we need to not be $5 million in the red.
But
Which is why we've
we're
got-
90/10 and we're online with other counties. Not private sectors, but other counties.
So we're going to present the two options. Of course, there's a third, which is not to change. And so
Yeah.
There's always that option. So there's things we can consider here, so to your point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that benchmark was very telling too. The private sector, 80/20 is your standard. County government's not necessarily 80/20 for standard. And I know, I get that there is a concern with the $5 million deficit. I also believe that it just may not have been budgeted appropriately because we were being told it's going to be this much, but we decided to budget lower than that. So I think as long as we go with what our professionals are recommending to forecast, we shouldn't find ourselves in that situation moving forward.
And I think just to make that point, there were a couple of events the last 2 years that you may want to expand on that hit the program pretty
Yeah.
hard.
Oh, yeah. So those last 2 years, even the forecast, we exceeded the forecast, not $5 million worth, though. But we did exceed the forecast in the last couple of years. We just had some very high claimant costs hit us. And that is the risk you run as a self-funded. But when you look at the 10-year look back, the forecast compared to the actuals really was $2.9 million in the good for the county. But and we don't have to budget exactly what our consultants are telling us. It's common that we make our own decisions. But I think the history shows that the forecasts we're getting are pretty spot on. And even this year, we did budget what we were told is your forecast. And right now, we're trending at 60% on our budget.
Okay, but finishing that, a budget deficit set aside, we're still at a high ratio. So that's how you budget. That's irrelevant to me. Yeah, you're going to be in a deficit, but I'm talking about what employer-employee pay.
Sure.
So yes, we're in a deficit and we can adjust that, but I'm talking about the 92.8 split.
Okay, so this, Mr. Cunningham, kind of gets into your questions. We'll start with the July 127. Again, it is kind of small, but this is showing you, if we can scroll down, Sarah, to the second part, because that's the basic. I think that's where most of our employees are, so you can see what that increase is going from. So, for example, the basic employee-only plan would go from $78.50 per month. Excuse me, let's look at the July 126, sorry. It's going to go from $58.50 to $78.50 for a basic employee only. For the employee spouse tier, we're going to go from $134 to $184. So it's essentially a $20 increase to the premiums for employee-only coverage and a $50 per month increase for all dependent tiered coverages in the first year plan. The second year plan, we will then increase the tiers by $15 a month for the employee-only, and again, $50 a month for the dependent tier coverage. Year 3 at year 28, you're looking at a $15 a month increase for the employee-only coverage, a $40 a month increase for dependent care, and a $50 increase to the spousal surcharge. And then you can see as it goes on the differences there. So I know it's a lot of data thrown at you, but that's kind of a high-level overview of what those patterns look like for that 5-year plan.
Any other comments or questions?
And the biggest thing at the bottom, it's telling you, Sarah, can you go back to that? Yeah. So that's the green one will be next year's plan. We're looking at increasing the employee cost by about 32.9% overall. And then the next year is about an 18.9% increase. And then the following year is about a 19% increase.
So for a single and a spouse, it's about $1,700 for 3 years with a spouse is the increase.
If that, yes. If you're looking at 85.15, you're just looking at those first two columns, and we'll be
$1,200.
Mm-hmm. And you'll be where your goal is by next year.
Correct.
So the spousal surcharge, as mentioned earlier too, right now it's $50 a month for a spousal surcharge. That spousal surcharge really isn't bringing in a lot against us because we don't have a lot of people that have it. But there's a population of folks that have spouses that are eligible to get their own plan but decide to be on our plan because we do have a great benefit plan. So for that, in addition to a tobacco surcharge, if you are a tobacco user, you do pay an extra $50 monthly surcharge. We will be looking to increase that surcharge slowly over time. So year 3 will increase it to $100 a month. Year 5 will increase it to $150 a month on top of your premium.
All right, any other comments?
Yeah, you said that we had some catastrophic coverage.
We do.
Do we have a catastrophic policy?
We do.
Okay.
We do. And this year it's at $250,000 deductible. So, but even when I say catastrophic, to me, anything over $150,000 claim is something you just don't see often. So there's still that gap of that 150 when actually I think it's over 200. When something hits over 200, they're called a high claimant. When they hit over 250, they're now covered under stop loss. And we had several high claimants the last 2 years.
Any other
So far
comments?
this year, actually, we are below the trend of our high claimants costs. So we're really hoping for a good, strong year when we finish this year.
Any other comments? Yes.
I know I came in late and I apologize, but I know we want to try to get to the 80-20. I think the 85-15, if we want to try to balance that share, that might be splitting the baby, so to speak, get 2-year cycle, and then we can reevaluate from there to see if it's working. Because I'd hate to put forward a 5-year plan, and it's not working.
Yeah, I think we just wanted general guidance as far as how we're going to budget for this, what we look at for fees, if we want to go 80-20 or the 85-15. Because I think as it's been, we haven't really had a course, a marker to steer the ship. So we're just trying to get that so we understand where to go.
Again, another council down the road can take a look at it. So I like your point about a 2-year plan. Gets us moving in that direction, because obviously health care is a costly item. It's going to remain costly. The area is growing. We are getting more health services coming to us. So that's an unknown future as to how influential the marketplace will be because of all of the health care opportunities we may have, good, bad, or indifferent. So I like the idea of the 85-15.
And to your question earlier, Mr. Cunningham, about pay, we're going to talk about merit pay. So that's something to consider going forward, is we're going to have opportunities to, and I get what you're saying about moving the money around, but I think this program, we just want to understand where to steer the ship.
I like the 2 year.
I agree with the 85-15 on a 2-year, and you can always reevaluate it. To go to the 80-20 over 5 years, the next council could say, let's go back to 92-8. So I think we do it over the 2 years. I would be happy with that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
It's- My only question, though, is something that we need to discuss as council then. Are we going to continue to look at the flat rate, or are we going to look at the percentage? Because if we are, no matter how we raise this, if we're going to say it's going to raise by a percentage there, and we continue to do just a 3% COLA, the only people we're hurting are the lowest ones on the pay scale.
That's us, by the
Yeah,
way.
I know, but I'm just saying in general. So if we are going to say we're moving forward with this, then we need to have it in our mindset that we need to be looking at a flat base raise all the way through, because if not, the ones you're going to be hurting are the ones that are paying for it the most already if we're going by percentage.
Right, which is why we introduced a flat amount of money to everybody at the lower end was getting a higher percentage.
Correct. So I just want to make sure, like,
Yeah.
if this is going to be our focus for the next 2 years, that we have to have that mindset as council that that has to be our focus for the next 2 years, because if we switch back to a percentage, we're taking even more money from them. So I just want to put that out there ahead of time. But I am good with the 85-15 if that's a route to not bind the next councils to.
I think 2
Yeah,
years
and-
is very reasonable. Yeah.
And then, Mr. Passman's point, you're right. Medical trends are 6 to 8% increase, each year. But so I'd like to take the opportunity to give a huge shout out to your workforce, because we've been keeping that under trend for so many years. It means you got a healthy workforce. They're going to the doctor. They're getting their early diagnoses. They're taking their medicines, and really, if we had been meeting trend since 2016, you'd be looking at a $20+ million plan as of this year, and we're still very much under that trend. So that really does deserve a lot of kudos to your employees that are keeping themselves
Now,
healthy.
do we do, trying to think of the terminology, health insurance accounts that individuals can?
HSAs.
HSA.
We don't do HSA because we don't qualify for HSA, and you really don't want to qualify for HSA. That means you have a high deductible plan, but we have flex spending accounts where they can put in pre-tax dollars from their paychecks to pay co-pays, prescriptions, things of that nature.
Medical items that.
Correct.
Right.
Do many of our employees take advantage of the flex plan?
We do. We have a good percentage of the employees that
So they're
participate.
well aware of it and they take advantage of that.
Yes,
Is it
ma'am.
use it or lose it?
It is a use it or lose it. There's a grace period that they can use it up through September, even though the plan year ends on June 30. That was just implemented a couple years ago.
And how is our copay compared to other plans?
Our copays are actually pretty standard with what you see with other plans. In fact, we might be slightly higher than some for that basic plan because it is a higher copay, lower premium. But we're pretty standard or average with what we see with our peers with copays and deductibles.
Okay, ready for the next one?
Chairman
So
Howard?
if you all are, did you have a comment, Pinky?
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
It's 15.6% for general fund for our general fund departments. That does not include the other funds because they pay for their own. But it's 15.6% for
It's
general
for-
fund departments,
For health.
for health insurance, only for general fund.
Okay. Tab and I go to the hospital board meetings, and they have a comparable number of employees that we do, and that's one of their biggest items that goes up every year, is, of course, their health insurance.
Yeah.
And that's why people stay. So, yeah. Thank you, Pinky. That's good to know.
All right, so I think the next item on the agenda is a merit pay update. I'll start with letting you know that the.
I'm sorry, we sort of talked about we're going to go with this plan.
That's what I noted.
And you'll budget
so-
for it. Okay. All right.
Okay. So you'll see it again when the budget gets presented, and that way, if you have
Yes, we'll
wanted to
vote
change
on it.
direction, we can talk about it. But for the purposes of planning the budget, I'm going to provide the numbers for the 85-15 split with year one plan.
85-15 over 2 years.
In 5 years.
Yes, it was 80-20 over 5 years. We're going to go 85-15 over 2 years. And then stop and reassess it after 2 years.
And focus on, when we do increases, doing it on a flat rate so it doesn't hurt the lower paid employees,
employees.
but instead of doing a percentage.
Catherine, to be clear, are you saying that the backup documentation that you had in there, you're starting next fiscal year with option 15? Because that's a pretty huge jump.
I'm starting with the one that was in there, yes. And then the next year will be at the 85-15. Unless we want, and I think those are things we can talk about offline. And Council, I think, from hearing you right, your goal is to get us to 85-15 in 2 years. We as staff can go back and look at, well, what is that going to look like per employee? Is that fair to say? So we can certainly talk about that again and maybe readjust that and do it more of an even split. But I can go back to USI and have them rerun the next 2 years to be more even versus the 39 in year one increase, if that's what you'd like to see.
It'd be impact over 2 years instead of more
Right.
impact the first year.
Right.
So they're taking a bigger hit in year one, going from 92 to 87.2, and then you're only dropping 2% in year two.
Exactly. We can put that more even.
You could do it more
Yes.
evenly, yes.
Okay.
We're ready.
Right. So the merit pay implementation update, it's really just a couple updates for you. I'm going to kind of highlight the plan that we talked about in the past. We'll be bringing the policy to the Finance Committee and then following to Council. The expected implementation go live date is July 1, so we are staying on track with getting everything ready for that. We talked about this in October, but I just want to bring it back for a reminder. So we implemented the step pay scale that you all adopted January 28th. That those increases have now been issued to all employees that are a part of our comp and class plan. So everybody is on step in the new step scale. So the next goal is to now, how do you move people up in the step scale? And that's going to be done by way of merit that ties into your annual evaluations. So as I said, policies will be forthcoming for your consideration and adoption so we can go live on July 1. But to kind of give you a little preview of that, employees must have successfully completed their probationary period, not have received a disciplinary action or performance improvement plan within the preceding 12 months, and they have a current performance evaluation on file to be eligible for the annual merit increase. If we do have employees that get to the top of their pay scale, we will still reward them with a merit pay. It'll just be one lump sum, but there's no step for them to move to. As COLAs are issued, the step scale increases as well. So when COLAs are issued and we have to increase our scales, the intent is those people that are the high end are now back in step, if that makes sense. I hope it does. This is my language. I talk it every day, so if you're not understanding me, please ask. But
I have a question where it says they have to have a current performance evaluation on file. So that's not the employee's problem. That's their supervisor's problem. So if she's my supervisor and she didn't get my evaluation due,
Then
what's
you
my
lose money.
recourse? Because I'm going to pay the price.
your recourse is to come to me because that's a policy violation that your supervisor is not following county policy.
And everybody in our group has to have an evaluation on file with your office.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Just checking.
Yes.
She knows
That's a
what I'm
great
asking.
question. Yeah. So employees that need improvement or unsatisfactory ratings on those annual evaluations would not be eligible for a merit increase for that year, and then they would be placed on a probationary status and issued a performance improvement plan. Into the annual evaluations a little here. So it'll be an annual evaluation done through our NeoGov system. All eligible employees will undergo an annual eval. We will have a standardized rating scale so we can ensure consistency. We will continue our annual supervisor trainings with supervisors so they are well trained on how to complete a thorough unbiased evaluation and assessments with their staff, and then we'll have thorough documentation where supervisors must provide written justification and supporting evidence for any merit increases that exceed standards, which is the highest merit increase you can get. Exceed standards would be a 2-step increase on the current pay scale, and as a quick reminder, each step increase is approximately 2%. So in layman terms, exceed standards is a 4% increase to their annual wages. Meet standards is a 2% increase or 1-step increase. And if its needs improvements are below, as I mentioned before, they would not be eligible for a merit increase that year. And I kind of already touched on this too. The lump sum payment will be eligible for employees at the maximum pay range if they do receive the meets or exceeds. So they would either get a 2% or a 4% lump sum payment if they've already exceeded the steps in their pay range. And then we'll do an equity check. HR will review merit awards for patterns of inequity, and we'll report any findings to the county administrator.
I have a
You
question.
think go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Back to the other screen. Wait a minute. The one before that, I guess. All right. So let's say it's you're a grade 12, and we have 12 steps, right? So you're saying, okay, if someone's at grade 12 and they're at 12, the highest they can go, don't they get promoted to the next grade with their evaluation instead of, you're saying you get paid a lump sum?
Yeah, so
I don't
the grades are
understand how that
associated with positions. So unless they're actually promoting to a new position, they stay in that pay band. But if they've exceeded the steps, they would get a lump sum merit increase. When we do COLAs, that's going to increase the step scale. So I would say right now, I think we have 4 employees that are already at the max out of 900 plus. That doesn't happen often.
Okay.
You've got an employee that's been an executive assistant for 50 years, they don't want to do anything else. They're going to tap out of their pay band eventually.
All right.
So it's not a high population at all that would experience this. And now even those 4 employees, they are just barely out of range. So probably the next time you issue a COLA, they're going to get back in step. It doesn't happen often, but
Okay, I'm sorry I interrupted.
no, that's a great question because, okay, I think I was going into this one. Administrative process, so again, we'll have the supervisor recommendation. We have several levels of review with these evaluations. So the supervisor will conduct the evaluation. It'll be reviewed by a second level manager. It'll also be reviewed by human resources. And then we'll also include the ACA to do the final approval of the merit increase. So our next steps, as I mentioned at the beginning, is that currently we are completing the configurations in the NeoGov system, because another item we had talked about before is, do we want to keep the universal dates for evaluations or transition to anniversary dates? We're going to transition to anniversary dates. So with that, you're welcome. With that, there's some configuration changes that we had to do in the software. So the HR staff is wrapping that up. We're projected to have everything completed and in the system ready to go by end of April. And as I mentioned, we'll be bringing that formal policy to committee in April, council in May, to be ready for a go live date on July 1. So essentially, anniversary dates from July 1 on will start getting their evals at the time of evaluation, and they'll have a merit increase processed within X amount of days, probably 2 pay periods of the completion of that annual evaluation.
Any questions or comments? I really am glad you're doing it by anniversary date. That way, it's probably in some ways easier on the supervisor, isn't it?
Very much so.
Yeah, they don't get a
50
whole,
at one time.
I think about Donna over at EMS with, having to put eyes on 100 evals at one time.
Yeah.
And then it gets very easy at that point just to check.
Yeah.
So this will allow them to be more thorough and take their time in reviewing it.
Well,
Cunningham. Oh,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
no, I didn't have another question.
Well, will you provide council a update of how the merit process is working and evaluation, that kind of stuff?
I would love to.
So that we'll see how this is actually benefiting
I would love to do
the
that.
population as a whole.
Yeah, we can look at doing quarterly updates or
I was going to say
twice a
quarterly
year.
if we can.
Yeah.
We can bring out quarterly.
Whatever works for you guys. Just
Because it's on
just
an
wanna make sure it keeps
anniversary,
us in
so
the
as a
loop.
quarterly update, that could work.
I like the anniversary idea.
Yeah, one, thank you for doing the anniversary date. Secondly, so what's been done so far, I've had a couple people reach out to me. That's just putting them onto the scale that they should be on. So that's not necessarily their raise yet.
Correct.
So
And
I've had a lot of people be like, I saw you guys pass the merit base and my raise was 12 cents. And I was like, I have a workshop in a couple weeks, I'll let you know.
But I think you may be talking about the step, because the step did go into effect.
And I had to be very careful. Every employee got a personal notification from me. And I was very careful in the language I used, because I didn't want anyone to feel slighted that this has anything to do with their performance. This was solely to get you on a step that's closest to your current rate.
Yeah.
So when we do have merit increases as of July 1, you're now unstep, because our policy is you get a 1 or 2 step increase. Well, if you're not already unstep, you're going to get slighted.
Right.
If you're not already on a step. So
right now it's just putting them on the step that they should be on.
That is
So when
correct.
this goes into effect.
that is correct. And I've also had feedback, so I just want to say it for you all, if you're hearing it from staff and staff that may be listening, there was a lot of confusion too that maybe the steps associated with their years of service, and it did not. The steps associated with their years of service in their current role, which is what we implemented in the last class and comp study, because I've had some say, well, I've been here 11 years, but I'm a step 8. You've been in your current role for around 8 years. That's how that step was created. So it's essentially where your current rate was based on the last class and comp study. We rounded you up to the next step, and we didn't put anyone down, but everyone went up 1 step. I had someone in my staff get a 1 cent increase. So it was felt countywide, but the intent was to get you on step. So we are now prepared for merit increases as they come through in July.
Makes
And
sense. I just want to make sure that I gave them the correct answer for anybody that asked me, and that helps me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you. We've got one. You've got one more.
No, I don't. I'm done. I think the next one will be John.
But just to clarify, I think
That's right. Yeah.
we talk about a merit, and then I think I also heard there'd be a component tied to cost of living, which would be a fixed dollar amount as opposed to a percentage.
Right.
I mean, I've heard that mentioned here. I just want to make sure that we're hearing that correctly.
Yes.
I just want to clarify so as we put this together.
Councilman Passman.
Yeah, one final thing on our insurance. Do we have a workers' compensation plan?
We do. Mm-hmm.
Do we have a light-duty plan?
Mm-hmm.
And are jobs, the actual job description define for instance, some of our people have to lift things every day, so we have a poundage in there.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
So if we have an employee with a workers' comp injury, the first thing we do is if the doctor places them on light duty, they'll coordinate with our risk management department, and departments are telling us, hey, I could use some help in this clerical field, so if you have any workers' comp light duty folks, send them my way. And so we try to find light duty work for them before they just go home.
Do they go to their own doctor, or do they go to our doctor?
They go through a doctor that we work with, but it's not like our own doctor by any means. But yeah, it is who we refer them to.
Okay, we're going to take a 10-minute break before we start the next one, and thank you. It was excellent. Okay?
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
very much.
Just thought about it on break. I know we're talking about doing this on the anniversary date for the valuations, and we're starting in July. Is there any way we could discuss employees that have been here for X amount of years to maybe at least get an evaluation? What if they're got hired in March and they have to wait an entire year when we start this in July? So is there a way that we can talk about like people that have been here for 5 years or 6 years or something along those lines, that they could at least get their first evaluation done earlier? Or is that something you think would be too difficult?
I wouldn't.
And it might be a dumb idea. I don't know. It's just.
Well, there's never a
thinking.
dumb idea.
Yeah, no, they're all going to be done. So if they are March and it starts in July,
They'd have to wait an entire
till
year.
March
Yeah.
to, because that's their anniversary date, but
So before I give an answer, could I ask for clarification on something that might solve that?
Sure.
We talked about COLA a little bit. Is there an intention with council to do a COLA in FY26? If so, COLAs is separate from merit and should be implemented at the beginning of the fiscal year.
Me personally, I would think this year, yes, especially with this just going into effect. And if that is the case and council still, the rest, everybody else is going down that route, I'm totally fine not worrying about evaluations and starting anniversary year, because there's still going to be a raise put in that year.
So if the desire is to do a COLA, administratively, I would prefer to keep your anniversary date, but it solves your concern with there is something we're doing in July.
Solves my concern. I don't know about everybody else, but that clears my mind very well.
Well, could we talk a little bit about that to get kind of the temperature of the room? Because I don't think we were talking about a COLA. So
I'm leaving.
Is
I should have warned you ahead of time.
Thanks.
Is that something you want us to start working on?
And I think maybe we can talk about, in terms of percentage for the merit, what that's going to
Sure.
look like, and then, what the basic COLA could be, as part of that.
So
it could be two parts.
absolutely, and we talked a little bit about this when we first brought merit to you. I don't think we ever need to ignore COLAs. COLAs are separate from merit. COLA is a cost of living, goes with inflation. I would not recommend to continue doing the standard 3 to 5% COLAs that we've done previously, because we are doing merit. And traditional bell curves, the majority of your employees are going to be getting a 2% merit increase. Small percentage will not get a merit increase because they're not performing. Small percentage are your superstars that are getting the 4%. So you want to think the majority of your employees will be getting a 2%, as is with merit only. So when you think about COLA, got to remember that. If you're going to do, let's say, a 1% COLA or a 1.5% COLA, you're looking at around a 3 to 3.5% average increase for your workforce, which I think is fair. You want to talk about doing your traditional 5% COLAs or 3% COLAs, somebody could potentially be getting a 9% increase. So I would not recommend matching your COLA with the CPI inflation that we've done historically, because you're also doing merit increases. That's my 2 cents on it. So.
What's the flat rate that we did last year?
I think it was 3, I was about to say that, wasn't it 3,000?
It's,
1338, I believe.
oh, yeah,
Flat
that's
rate.
what it was.
Yeah, we went to a flat rate instead, and we did 983 for part-time and 1384 for full-time.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's kind of what I was thinking, doing a
So
flat
that's
rate.
13, and if we cut that in half, that's 750 and change, or 680 and change.
I think it wasn't around 18.
I thought it was
1,800.
1,800.
It was
roughly
equivalent of a
last year.
3% payroll
1880.
increase.
1880?
I transposed my numbers.
Okay, so, yes. So that was last year's, or this year's, I should say.
So 940 would be 50% of that, which would have been originally 3% to 1.5.
And I'm sorry to throw some wrenches, but I think this is a great time to do that. In hindsight, a concern from HR's perspective with the flat increase, increases on COLAs also increase your pay bands. You may recall our pay scale is a 5% difference from one grade to the next, flat 5%. So when we increased our pay scales, it got that off as you went up in the higher pay bands because they weren't technically 5% or 3% increases. It was $1,800, which compressed our pay bands. We fixed that compression through the step implementation, but I just want to point that out that if we are, I personally agree with your thought process on the flat, but I want to be mindful that it is going to cause compression on our pay bands.
I think we can see what y'all recommend soon, right? So it sounds like what HR is going to recommend to Mr. Moore.
Right. Do we have enough to form a recommendation?
Just for information, CPI for the current upcoming fiscal year is at 2.63%.
2.63. Okay.
That matters.
Okay.
If you wanted a recommendation from me today, I would do a 1.5% COLA. Across the board.
Across the board.
I do appreciate the intent behind the flat, but it does compress our pay bands.
And the merit would still come into play for those employees as well.
Right.
Okay. Well,
I guess my only concern is that is pretty counterproductive. We just talked about with healthcare then. So the raise in healthcare just took away their 1.5%.
well, that's what
Even at
happens
the
with
lowest
federal
employee,
employees every year.
15 times 12.
That's what happens with federal employees
600.
every year.
Yeah, the federal government messes up all the time now. I don't want to
I
be the
know.
federal government.
It happens every year. Yep. Any other comment or questions of Catherine?
Just a last comment. I shared with you after that. I share your concerns. But to put it in a different perspective, 39% sounds like a lot for the health insurance increases, but it was $20 extra a pay period for the employee only, $50, or excuse me, monthly. I keep getting that mixed up. $20 a month extra, $50 a month extra, and it is a pre-tax benefit. So I don't think it's going to have as much feeling as just looking at this 39% increase and 4% increase of salary. It doesn't match apples to apples that way.
All right. Thank you. All right. John is up next, right?
Good morning. So I am going to talk with you about paid leave time. One of the conversations we had, I think it was a few months ago, was about our public safety staff and paid leave time, their inability to use their earned leave time. So we took a hard look at what that is, how much those employees are earning, how much they're losing, and what we can do to solve that problem. So Catherine and I worked on this quite a bit, and the reason I'm doing this presentation is most of those departments are public safety departments. So those departments that have employees that do shift work, 12-hour shifts, 24-hour shifts. So this includes our EMS personnel, our Beaufort County Sheriff's officers, our detention officers, and our animal control officers. I think I got them all. Did I push it through?
PowerPoint?
No, it wasn't in the back.
I thought I lost it. Okay. Thanks.
No, ma'am.
It's helpful to have it.
Got it. All right, so I want to first tell you what we're doing, and then I'll tell you why, or what we'd like you to consider and why. One of the things that we do when it comes to the paid leave cash out is we come to you towards the end of the year and we request that paid leave cash or paid leave cash out option from you. And when you approve that, then we go back and find those funds to make that happen. And we do that countywide, and it has been 40 hours for every employee over this period of time. So I don't think that should change. However, I want to specifically address those needs of public safety folks. Being that, one of the recommendations that I'd like you to consider is making this a policy, being able to put this in our employee handbook or some other policy that we do this regularly, and then we can properly budget for that. So like I said, what happens now, I think the finance office does reserve some funds to cover that in expectation that you will approve that. But we have to often dip back into those departments' budgets in order to cover those funds. So if we plan for it now, it's a much better for us as we move forward. This can also become a benefit for recruitment and retention, and can possibly, because this all of paid leave time does become a liability for the county. So all those funds that are unused that all of our staff members have is something we have to account for. Just doing that. There it is. So this is what I just talked about. And specifically the reason we're talking about public safety staff is due to a myriad of reasons, whether it is a shortfall in personnel or specific job requirements. They are earning much more vacation time than they can use. So often at the end of the year, they are losing that time. Some of that time, we have a disability savings bank. So if they've exceeded the number of hours they've met their cap limit, those hours roll over into a disability bank. We do have a number of employees who have filled that disability bank as well. So those folks are just, they're capped. They are, every pay period, they are losing those earned hours. All right. I'm going to share with you our current practice. So this is this is an excerpt from the memo that HR sends out every year once you approve those funds, and specifically for those 40-hour employees. I would hope a lot of folks take advantage of cashing those hours out and investing in their 401k and 457. I did that, and I really liked being able to do that. Right now, this is our current accrual rate, just so you understand what some of our staff members are accruing. And I want you to focus on the 10-year and over. So this is where this affects public safety the most. Those employees that have the most tenure and the most experience, they also provide the most important services in our public safety. They are the officers in our detention center and for the sheriff's office and our EMTs and medics that are most seasoned, so they fill most critical positions. Right now in our detention center specifically, our shortfall in personnel has us on an emergency mandatory overtime. There is no leave available for them to take. So every hour earned by these tenured employees in their leave time is just going away. They're not seeing the benefit of their work. And this is the same schedule. This is right out of our employee handbook. This is what it looks like for a 24-hour shift employee. What we're asking is if you would consider making this a policy so that we can properly budget for this. The changes in this policy would be applicable to the Sheriff's Office, EMS, Detention Center, and Animal Services. We would, of course, align the new policy with the existing practice that we've done. Okay? That's in the slide I showed you earlier. How we derived our options. So Catherine and I met with each of the public safety agencies. When we did that, we did not exclude, but we failed to invite the sheriff's office to that meeting. So when we were having these discussions, we were really just talking about our internal departments. However, since then, Chief Outfield and I had a great conversation about what we were doing, and they were very supportive of this effort as well. They have a number of officers who fall into the same category. While right now, I think the largest number of employees that have exceeded their balance is in EMS, and then it is the detention center, and then, of course, the other departments. And in animal services, it's not great, but we do have 4 shift work employees there, our animal services officers, who offer 24/7 coverage. So they can't always have a day off when they need a day off because we have to provide that service. We are obligated to provide that service. So during these conversations, we ask those department heads, what would you like us to do? How can we help you solve this problem? So we had a long list of options. We whittled those down to 4, and those are what I'm going to present to you. So one of the options first was to increase the allowable hours of PLT, sorry, that one's wrong, PLT cash out for those employees. So we could increase it, we could double it for the year. It's instead of 40 hours, it's 80 hours. When you look at their hours earned, 80 hours is still a fraction of the hours that they're earned at the end of the year. One of the most attractive practices for them, for these departments, was to do it twice a year. To do it in December, increase the number of hours for those agencies from 40 to 60, and then do it again in the spring. Because what happens is, when I describe some of those employees who reached that level, and then it rolls over into their disability account, once their disability account has maxed out, they're losing it every pay period. It's just going away. Then another option was to double it in December, and then offer another 40 hours in the spring, or not do either of those and just offer the total of 120 hours in December. That might be an appropriate option if we don't decide to create this as a policy and don't fully budget for that event. So we're coming back to you and asking your permission to do that. So once a year might be easier for the finance office to manage that instead of the twice a year kind of thing. The staff, this was the preferred option. This is why I'm showing it to you first. The preferred option was to increase those hours to 60 hours and do that twice a year. Another option was discussed was to create a PTL rollover account. So in this way, instead of those hours that exceed their maximum rolling over into disability, this could roll over into another account, and then those employees that exceed that maximum could apply, if funded, for PTL cash out program with those hours that are stuck in that bank. Option 3 was to increase the accrual balance. Right now it's 320 hours. Increasing the accrual balance does push it down the road a little longer, but it won't take long before those same employees meet that maximum and are still in the same position. The other thing that increasing the hours does is really just increases the county's liability to maintain that on the books. So really not a preferred option. And lastly, create an automatic payout system. So when an employee reaches that maximum, instead of losing those hours every pay period, that they would automatically be paid out. There's a lot of problems with this as well. Trying to create a system that does that, and then personally, I think it takes away the opportunity from the employee to make decisions on their own time earned. So the option 1 was the favored option for employees. But if we did that twice a year, what we'd be looking from council support is to make this a policy, budget for that, so that we can fund this properly, and then towards the end of the year, it's not a headache or guesswork or asking our finance office to go and find all these dollars to fund it properly.
All right, open it up for questions and comments. Yes, David.
Thank you. I talk to the Sheriff's Department frequently, and I appreciate what you're doing looking into this. I think as long as the Finance Department can do it, I think the twice a year might be pretty good, the 60, and 60. The other thing that piqued my interest was the 401k contribution. I noticed with your plan, it didn't really go into full detail about that. Is there a plan? Do we have a match with that 401k if that contribution happens, or how does that?
No, sir. No, sir. There's no match. No, if you want to give a match, I would love that. But there certainly is. That's another benefit that a lot of municipalities and counties do, and private organizations do, a 401k match. That's an independent benefit that I would again support. I work for a private company that certainly did match 401k investment. It encourages folks to invest in their own futures. It sure does, and their retirements. But that's not really part of this. That as an option for an employee to take that cash or to use that as an investment is a really great option that the HR department put together.
Any other comments?
Well, I guess kind of following. I guess my question is, could we do both if we did the 60/60, could we do both a sellout or a like a cash or a contribution of 401k? Make it part of the policy where
Yes,
it would be the employee's choice.
So if I may, that is currently in place, but I just want to be clear, we understand that's not the employer matching.
No, I understand that, yeah.
But not everyone has a 401k, so you have to consider that as well. And then Beaufort County does significant matching in the state retirement system, so I don't want to lose sight of that either, that while we don't match your 401k, it's almost a double pay into your state retirement.
Well, let me ask you another question while you're standing there. If they were to have a direct contribution from this, could they put it into their PEBA retirement and we not match that contribution?
No, that's not allowed by PEBA.
Okay.
They'd have to formally buy time. Nobody can really afford that.
Understood. No.
Any other comments or questions?
I like the idea of the 60/60 option and making it a policy, because then it is very predictable. Everybody knows the benefit that it can be for those particular employees. So I would like to go.
Certainly.
Yes, ma'am.
What's the fiscal impact?
Just about to ask, do we know the cost?
Because I'm not doing any policy
I do not.
until we know a cost.
Well, I'm ready for you. And I will say this is approximate because staffing level changes in all these departments. In 2023, and I'm specifically going to talk about those public safety departments that this impacts. In 2023, the 40-hour cost to the county for Sheriff's Office, EMS, Detention Center, Animal Services was $278,000. In 2024, it was $281,000, give or take a little bit here and there. In 2025, it was $320,000. And those are just of the participants that chose to sell back time, and that was with the other program. Yes, that's right. That included the admin staff. So the total cost, or the total PTL cash out program, was about $850,000 around those years. When we add those hours for just those departments, just the shift work employees, our expectation is maybe $1.2 million.
What we need a budget for?
A year?
For PTL cash out. Right now, it's about $850,000. So we're looking at that increase of,
So you predicted 1.2 million?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
Yes,
We've had the shortage in the detention center. What is it, 33 people?
33, I think 34 today. But
34 today?
Yes, ma'am.
Part of the problem is that we're not I mean, you would hope that number would go down, and I know you have some ideas on that.
And we're going to talk about that later today,
Okay,
actually.
all right, good.
It is the last
Because
topic
that would
today.
decrease this number too.
Yes, it would. And like we talked about, Catherine put together a great big spreadsheet that has all the employees, different categories of employees, and all the backup material, which helped me to put this information together for you. And it shows the accrual of each of those shift work employees, so that we can really take a good look and see, is it all the employees? Is it a certain number of staff members? One thing about the detention center is we kind of have this bifurcated staff. We have staff that have been here a long time, that are loyal and dedicated to their work, and then we have newer staff members who have been here from that 1 year to 5 year kind of time span. And then all the recruiting that we've done kind of creates this revolving door. We recruit people, they come in, they don't really like it, they move on. So we have this kind of big turnover number, but it comes to that. So when we begin to look at PTO cash out, it affects mostly our tenured folks.
You said the total cost for the payout was about $850,000 a year.
That's what we paid that's what it cost us in the previous years, just based on the 40 hours, and that included all employees.
Right, so
Yes, sir.
when you were talking about 23, 24, and 25, let's talk about 25. It's $320,000 for those employees.
Specifically, yes, sir.
But isn't that part of the $850,000?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so
That's
it's not really $1.2 million.
Well, no, sir. We expect that total
Going
cost
to increase.
The total program would go from that 850, and these are estimates, because all of this changes depending on employees' participation, right? So in the past years, we spent about $850,000, and we expect, if we include this, just for those departments, that cost would go to about $1.2 million.
Which, it's not $1.2 million new money, because it's already in the budget someplace. We just, every December, say, let's do this, and then find the money. And that's what we've been doing year after year. So this is now making it part and parcel of what we expect to do and how we expect to do it.
And if I could on that, going back to merit, so it all depends on when they cash it out, because it could be before their merit increase, it'd be cashed out at a lower value. It's really hard to nail down a number, but I just want you to know that towards the end of the year, that spring cash out will probably be more than your winter cash out, because more people have now received a merit increase, because the cash out's the value of your current rate of pay.
Any other comments, questions, Dave?
No, let him go ahead.
Okay.
To piggyback off Chairwoman Howard's statement, the money currently for all these vacancies, if we filled those vacancies, theoretically it should cut down on the amount of PTO taking.
Absolutely.
But with that said, it's already banked, so we're going to foot that bill for at least 4 to 5 years, even if we fill those spots tomorrow.
I think that's accurate.
So my question would be, the funds currently for those vacant spots, are we still holding that at the county, or do those departments hold that money? Go ahead.
So the funding for vacant positions is within the wages and salaries line items in each department.
So my question is, if it's vacant and that money that we allocated to them is being used for PTO, how do we as a county use that money that's not being used for what it's supposed to actually cover this PTO to cover that cost?
Certainly. That's probably a question
We would transfer the funds out of the departments to cover the expense.
Okay, so I really think that's something we need to look at, because the vacancies aren't getting any less, they're going up in most of these departments when it comes to whether it's sheriff's department or detention center. So if it's not being used for those salaries and we're paying more in PTO, we should be pulling those funds from that, because you're not filling the spot anyways. So that shouldn't raise our line item, so we can still continue our goal of lowering that millage by the end of this
Correct.
budget season.
I did not plan to budget the PLT.
You do what?
I did not plan to budget the PLT.
Right.
I plan to use vacancy lag for it.
Correct.
Perfect. So if that's the idea behind it. I just want to make sure that we have a mechanism in place that we've approved where we can use those funds to offset that cost, because it's not, that money's just sitting there. We should be using it for that, not taking out of our line items for daily budgets.
But I think if you were doing this PLT program for public safety alongside the other PLT program that you do for the rest of the county, I think it should be presented to you on an annual basis, and we do it on an annual basis.
Okay with that too.
I'm not in favor of a policy.
Your numbers are going to vary.
And my question is, so with EMTs, we went to that fourth shift, so there should be hypothetically less overtime. Firefighters, I mean, I don't know how you reduce overtime when people call off, don't come in, whatever, but this is, I mean, I get the detention center, that's another story, and the sheriff has like 30-something vacancies off and on, but what about EMT and fire?
So fire department does not fall within the county's purview.
Well, but I heard you say fire, so I know they're separate.
No, ma'am.
So they're not your public safety, okay. I know they all have their own budget.
That's correct.
But wouldn't they have to do this as well for
No, ma'am.
equity?
Well, they could, but they currently set their own policy, yes.
Well, so, yeah, I know they set their own policies, which give me 1 minute of leeway. We were talking about fire district consolidation because there are firefighters that are not making as much, and every fire department's going to set their own policy. So Bluffton might say, yeah, we're going to pay out 120 days, hours of PLT, but maybe St. Helena can't. So I'm still waiting for fruition of that.
Generally, whatever we decide to do, they try to follow suit if their budgets can afford it.
Yeah, but if their budget can't afford it, there we are. Now we put another liability on them. Because it doesn't look good that St. Helena can't afford to do it, but Bluffton can. That was the whole point of the study.
David, you had some?
Yeah, just before people start balking at the $1.2 million, that's already a liability we carry, right? I think you touched on it. This is banked. This is already earned. It's going to have to be paid out at some point. And then on top of that, people that aren't able to really cash out, they're earning a benefit that they're losing. Correct. So, I mean, that's almost an unjust enrichment to a certain degree. I know it's a benefits package, but, this is already a liability. We need to go ahead and we start paying it out. We start lessening that liability on the books, if I understand that correctly,
Yeah.
right?
So, yeah, the reason we do the PLT program is its benefit to the employees to be able to cash out right before Christmas, and it reduces the amount of liability on the financial statement. So it's a good thing that we do it because we reduce our liability that's owed to the employee.
But going back to Pinky's point about that it shouldn't be policy, we should do it year to year. Where's the other side of that argument?
Well, the policy sets a standard. It allows us to be consistent over time, and we can easily write into the policy that it would be implemented along with approval of the budget. But it's important for us to know that if we're going to do this twice a year, if the recommendation from the public safety staff is that they would like to see this twice a year, then we need to properly budget that. We need to know approximately what this cost will be. And to your point, if we begin to hire staff, so the shortfall in staffing right now is greatest in the detention center, and we're going to talk about this today as well. And as we improve our recruitment and retention, and we'll improve our options for those employees, we will see that those employees have more opportunity to use their time off, and we'll see this liability decrease over time. So I could see those employees many will still want to sell back their time, but you could see those numbers decreasing over time, and that will again reduce the county's liability.
Jump in real quick and say, if they just take the time off, though, it's not a liability because it's already budgeted in.
Right.
And then I don't want us to get too aggressive because there is a reason why we give them time off, and they need to take time off, as opposed to people that want to work all the time and never take time off. It's been proven that it's detrimental to them. So again, there is an advantage for them to actually take the time off that they're given to use it for their benefit, and us not to pay out aggressively on time that they've got.
You're
an excellent
absolutely
point.
right.
Well,
And I'll just tell you where we are right now in the detention center specifically, and then when it comes to tenured employees who fill in public safety critical roles, those critical roles, we are required to staff those critical positions. And when that requirement means mandatory overtime and no time off, then it becomes our fault. We have not filled positions in order to give our employees the benefit that they've earned. So those employees are just losing their earned time while we're making them work and not giving them time off. It's just not right.
David, you had another comment?
Yeah, so what I was going to say to that, it's not necessarily they're not taking time off. It's the way the shifts are structured and the short staff, they're having to do buddy swaps. So they may have some time off, but they're not actually taking a leave, so to speak. They're having to just swap shifts. So the shift is still getting covered, but there's not technically a time off. So that's, I think, the issue with the short staff right now.
A buddy swap is common in the fire service and in EMS. It's less popular in EMS than it is in the fire service, but that is an option that folks have.
And I think that happens pretty frequently at the sheriff's department too, is my understanding.
So, yeah, I don't know so much about them.
And you said it's
other-
the desire to have a policy. So
With the caveats, it sounds like we could
Right.
do? in
Yeah,
that?
so I would say you propose the policy, it goes through the appropriate committee to take a look at the policy, agree or disagree, move it to council for action.
Certainly. We have no problem preparing a policy to present for consideration, and that's really what we're asking for today, is just consider this PTL cash out, consider your public safety folks and the amount of time they earn, the dedicated employees that give of their time to Beaufort County that just can't take a day off.
I have another idea.
Yes, ma'am.
Mike, back in the federal government, if you didn't take your leave, you could accumulate it, and then when you retired, you got it. And it's like putting, money into a bank account, and then you retire, you have
extra
like
year.
10 weeks.
You could
haven't
take a
taken-
payout, or you can.
Yeah, why don't we
take
think
a
about that,
payment.
and then make a accrual every year for it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right, Alice, I
Yeah. That's a
forgot,
good
you're in the
idea.
federal government too.
Yeah.
And accrual for it, and that'd be a lot of, and it wouldn't really cost us anything right now.
Well, it does cost, so.
Well, it costs in the
Yeah,
end.
it costs in the
But we
end.
accrued for it over all the years.
Now
So
you
the
have an
money's there to
accounting
pay for it.
nightmare because it's got to go on your balance sheet.
The liability becomes
Yeah.
very great. So right now, we do have, when an employee retires, if they have, let's say, a lot of employees do this, if they know they're going to retire in 2 years, they stop taking their vacation time, so they build up to their maximum, so that when they do retire, those vacation earned hours,
Right.
they can be added to their retirement years. They could cash them out. There's lots of options for retirement employees with use of those. But if we just kind of make this infinite pool, then our liability for that cash, that dollar for dollar liability, would get huge. It would not be pretty on our audit.
Okay, I think we need to, like Joe said, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Gotta go on.
Just my only fear of that is we run a balanced budget here and we're trying to lower that. So I understand the federal government, but they do not run a balanced budget. So I understand the program sounds great, but I don't want to go in that
Okay.
direction.
All
So
right.
I understand the process, and they did it at the school district. You could buy it out and retire it at the end of the year, but it turns into a nightmare when you can't balance that budget. And honestly, most people can make more money investing it themselves than the government taking that money and investing it too, which is what they do during that time. And if
Some people
they
don't
mess
do
up, that's exactly what we would do here. We would take that money and invest it somewhere. And Lord forbid we mess up, or it's locked up for so long, then we can't pay people out, then we're in debt service. So that's just my only fear of that.
Okay, so you're going to bring it up
Yes,
to
ma'am.
committee?
We will take the consensus of council. We will put together a policy for you to consider, and we'll move forward from there.
Okay, all right. Next is Stormwater Fund, Enterprise Fund versus General Fund. This is a tag team with Pinky.
Yeah, and this
Jared.
was a question raised
Yes.
in November when we had our retreat, so we wanted to come back and answer that discussion.
That's correct. And Mr. Glover, I think, if he's still on, he was the one that really asked the question. So it's single question, and Pinky and I are going to tag team it. What I have here, and she'll pull it up in just a second, is just a quick assessment on how our stormwater fee is calculated today. Yeah, take
Sarah, you're going to send us these? I can't make notes when I don't have it. I don't know, it's not your fault.
This is Jared Fralix. Jared Fralix, quick dummy notes. And there's one quick highlight, and then I'll hand it to Pinky to give the next part of it.
Thanks.
Wait for everybody.
Just for the record. We do it all the time.
I hate
Good to hear.
paper.
All right, so just quick highlights. Our stormwater fee is rather complicated. This is breaking it down as simple as possible. There's a couple key components. First is a single-family dwelling unit. So basically, we treat everybody into a unit. So whether you're a residential unit or not, the first term there, single-family unit, is basically, well, I don't know why it's this number, but it's 4,906 square feet. So that is one residential unit. So there's a factor to make it, if you have a smaller home, to reduce that to equivalent to your home, or if you have a larger home. And then secondly is impervious area versus gross area. So how big is your overall lot versus how much of that lot is impervious. So if you got 1 acre and 75% is impervious, that's what we're talking about. So as you see, next is just some calculation tables. Again, there's 3 different tiers of the house, basically on the size of the house. So less than 2,500 square feet is a half of a dwelling unit. So we're going to multiply that. You'll see a little bit later. And then you got the tier 3s, so the different types of house, and then you also have different type of housing. You got a mobile unit, apartment, condo, and such. And then lastly is the gross area. So how big is the lot? Is it less than 2 acres? Is it greater than 2 acres? And then on the second page is just a quick example. And this is where you really start to see the typical home. This is, say, a 2,300 square foot home on a 1 acre or 0.8 acre lot. That's tier 2. So that's one single family unit equivalent. And you get to the formula at 0.5 times, well, let me back up. On the last page, you see the rates. So each municipality or jurisdiction, the county and the 4 municipalities set their own rates. So for the example, just using county rates, and if you go back to that first example 1, typical home, you can see the rates down there at the bottom. So when you put the formula is your single family unit rate. We want to get it the right size. Then your gross area, basically how much impervious area, and then an admin fee. So with this one, if you multiply 0.5 times 71 and 0.8 times 10 plus 19, that gives you the 62.5. Does that make sense? The big difference, if you skip down to example 3, is the commercial. So this is a 20,000 square foot building on 2 acres, and you get the equivalent units. That makes sense. So equivalent unit is basically 5,000 square feet. So that equals 5 single family homes is what it's saying. And this is the factor, that 2 times the gross rate. So basically that's multiplying. Commercial's going to have more impervious area, and you can see the rate there at 394. Long story short, so come up for air. Long story short is the fee that we have structured is structured such that it's fair based on how much impervious area you have on your lot and how much pollutants that provides to the stormwater system. So if we talk about shifting it from the enterprise and the fee-based solution and moving that to the general fund, it gets treated as everything else operating as a millage base. So then it goes, instead of getting treated fairly based off square footage and impervious area, it gets based off of value of the house. So what you're going to see, we've got a multiplication factor on commercial in the fee structure, because commercial is going to have more impervious area on your lot, and that lot is going to, you think about a parking lot, it's got more oils and stuff that are coming off into the system. The only factor when you get to the millage, the only break that the single families is if, for say, they're a 4%er versus a 6%er. Otherwise, everybody's getting treated exactly equal on stormwater. So what that's going to equate to, Pinky can tell you, but that's going to equate to more fees placed on residential versus commercial, if that makes sense. So Pinky, you can.
Questions or comments? Are you ready for that?
I am.
Okay.
Pinky's going to just show you how much stormwater fee revenue we collect and that equivalent millage. So you can see that the homeowners, in order to move it from fee to millage, it would go up by a certain amount.
Jared, on page 3, this quick rule of thumb, that list, that's generated by the municipality, correct?
Yes,
They determine how much to charge.
Yeah, each municipality, you can see how it's various on that. Those are the current fees today, and they tell us what they want. Then we put that in our calculator and then send that to the auditor for all the parcels throughout the county. So we in unincorporated are assessing this much. Hilton Head, you can see their fee is much higher, but so they're creating a different amount of revenue inside the town limits.
So they get that stormwater revenue, Hilton Head and Bluffton and everybody else.
Correct.
Right.
That's right. The only thing that we keep out of the Hilton Head is the administrative fee to help administer the program.
And we put in a new patio, bigger patio, and City of Beaufort was right on top of it, came out and measured it. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I think it's good that they did it, of course, because we had to get a permit too, but yeah. Yeah.
So real quick on the revenue and millage.
Sorry, my laptop won't go that far. All right, I can do it from here, Sarah. It's fine. Okay, so what you're looking at on the screen is 3 fiscal year-to-date actuals from 23, 24, and 25. This is all the revenue that was collected in the stormwater utility fund, and you can see it's generally around $7 million and some change. So the average is 7.4 million. We took that, divided it by the fiscal year 26 estimated value of a mill, which is the 2.9 million. If you were to take this revenue away from the enterprise fund and move it to the general fund, you would have to increase operating millage by 2.5 mils as of right now. This is what, and we use 25, 24, and 23 because those were the years, and these numbers are after the disbursements back to the municipalities. So if you were to take this department and completely consolidate it in the general fund, not only would you lose the revenue because your revenue numbers would change, residential will be paying similar, and correct me if I'm wrong, similar to what commercial would, but you wouldn't have as much revenue coming in, but you would also be increasing operating mill by 2.5. And that,
to say that otherwise, you'd have to, if you want to keep the same amount of revenue dedicated to storm drainage, stormwater, you'd have to increase the amount of millage versus what this 2.5 is in order to get the same level of revenue back.
We brought this up to discuss.
I think it was Mr. Glover brought it up during the budget retreat, right?
It was November.
November, yeah.
Because personally, 2.6 mil increase is a hard no for me.
Well, it's not just that. You're also looking at absorbing a lot of the expenditures that currently is sitting in an enterprise fund with a very healthy fund balance that helps offset some of that cost.
So,
Mr. Moore, do you have a comment?
I was just going to say, not every county has a stormwater fund, but where I came from, they did not. But I think this is more equitable in terms of the impervious surface and the effects, and it applies the cost, I think, more appropriately than ad valorem.
I do too.
Would.
Municipalities particularly, it's a good system to to me. Okay, Councilman Passmore.
And as an enterprise fund, it's self-sufficient.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And it is self-sufficient.
Very much so, with a very healthy fund balance.
System is not broke.
Yeah.
Not at all.
So, excellent point.
fix it.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Because the question was asked.
I think something that we are looking at overall is the calculation fee, the way the fee is calculated, sorry.
Yeah, so the system's not broken, but it is, this part right here is complicated, and so we want to try to use the KISS model and make it simpler. So that's what we're doing right now. Presently, we're about to go out on the journey to what other people are doing. Out of the entire state, as you mentioned, we have a very robust program, and our system, hands down, is the most complicated version of this. There's other systems that aren't quite as detailed, but still get you the end product that what we're doing, focused stormwater efforts.
David, you had a comment?
Yeah, how much is in that fund balance, or the stormwater fund?
I'm
Approximate.
gonna give you an estimate because they have budgeted, my budget manager's back there, $12 million right now, but they are spending some of that down on some projects that they're working on throughout fiscal year '26, so we'll have a better estimate towards the end of the fiscal year.
So I guess it's good to have a healthy balance in there, but I know there's a lot of projects throughout this county. I think that may be why Mr. Glover brought it up. I don't want to speak for him, but I know St. Helena and Ladies Island, and I know Tom has talked about some things down in Hilton Head.
Shell Point.
Yeah, Shell Point. I mean, if we have that healthy amount of funds, why aren't they being addressed?
They are
quicker?
allocating annually what their project list is, and it's actually, if you go on the stormwater page on our website, they'll show you all the projects that they have completed in each individual municipality area or unincorporated. But they budget, I mean, they can only do so much in one fiscal year, so they plan for them, and depending on procurement, contracting, and all of that fun stuff.
But to answer your question, so what we're doing is we've got the flywheel spinning. We've got a lot of major drainage studies throughout the county, either completed or in process. All Joy's in process now. And then those spit out designs, and designs spit out projects. So we've got a couple that are in process. Like Shell Point, an example, once we get to construction on that's in design, that'll be several $1 million that comes. So the fund balance has grown because we've had more projects in studies and designs, and we're about to be in expenditure mode.
And not to get too far ahead, but we're looking at personnel increases and some equipment for stormwater to help address some of the shortfalls and getting out and doing the maintenance.
The city of Beaufort, I guess, quote, rents our equipment to blow out the storm drains, which is, beneficial to everybody. One question I had that I think people in Gerald's district get, how is agricultural buildings handled on stormwater fees?
Just as impervious.
It is? Okay.
Yeah.
So if you have a barn, it's impervious, okay.
Yeah, the only thing would be the dwelling unit. So, yeah, it'd be impervious. Yep.
Okay. I don't know how many questions Gerald gets about that, but it comes up every now and then. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
I thought we had close to about 20 million in funds, stormwater.
They've spent it down. Their budget, the annual budget was 20 million, but of that is the 12 million that they had in fund balance. So Sarah pulled up your project list on the website. As you can see, all of your years are over to the right, and stormwater does a pretty good job about posting all of their projects by month, and the amount that they spend on the project. So I know you probably have questions from your constituents from time to time, but this is a great tool that the stormwater folks
a lot of these that are listed here are mostly our maintenance, and as Mike mentioned, so we're trying to improve how much maintenance we get to in the different parts of the county. So we have some staffing and equipment that's in this upcoming budget, and then the capital projects are the big projects like the Shell Point and stuff. So those will hit, but you don't see those as periodically as the maintenance crews going out daily to do work.
I have another question. Sorry to get off topic a little bit on this, but you'd mentioned the studies and the engineering. Would it be, I know we've talked about this with the road systems, would it be beneficial to have an engineer on staff rather than shipping it out to a consulting group?
Yeah, I mean, So two parts to that. There's the study, which is the engineering design or engineering look, and then there's the putting together the design and construction plans. Some of the designs are easy to put out that we're never going to get to this type where we're going to be, not never, let me say not never. It'll take a lot for us to basically have a full service engineering department that we can do all projects. There's components of projects that are more easily that we can work through. So for instance, on Ladies Island, if we need to design, we've got the study that says, okay, this is what we need. Now we need to go get a design and permit with DOT for upsizing this 18-inch to 24-inch. That would be a level of engineering design that we could go and do in-house if we had those services. But the study itself, unless we get a hydraulic modeling designer, that study's going to be hard for us to
and I understand that. My question was more so for what you were just talking about, the actual implementation of said study.
Yeah, and what we're beefing up really is that design engineering group being underneath engineering, and then whether that's road or simple stormwater, they would have those capacities. A lot of our stormwater, as we know, travels through DOT roads and encroachment permits. So we're building up the engineering muscle inside the engineering department.
Thanks.
Second question? Yeah. In the last year or so, well, probably 9 months, we found on the books an ordinance that allows communities to get credits or money back. How do we address that, and how do we, I don't want to use the word educate, but how do we matriculate back to our communities that have been paying stormwater fees and not getting services? How do we account for that? Like, Ebony Sanders goes out and does a reassessment campaign around the county multiple times. What do we do? And Mr. Moore, you and I talked about this. What do we do to get that started and get people?
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, I know there's an awareness issue with some of the HOAs, right? And they need to understand that there's a process for doing so, which I think we've had some discussion of that. I think getting around to the HOAs, I think, is part of educating them, because typically those are all privately owned, not county owned. So the maintenance, is not going to be performed by the county. It's expected that the HOA would do those improvements, and then they would in turn reap some credit for that.
Yeah, I think it's an awareness campaign. We've produced a document, you've seen it, just a 411 for HOAs on how do you go about obtaining that credit. So taking that and figuring out how we put it out with Hannah to get it out and awareness to the different POAs that they can be aware and take advantage of it.
And I
What are we
would make
doing
a
right now?
suggestion. So Sun City does it every year. It's a giant document, right? Because we have 360 lagoons, whatever. There's an HOA Manager Association. Why doesn't somebody speak to them? Just put it out to all of them at one time. I'm sure many of them know about it. Some of the smaller HOAs probably don't want to be bothered with the paperwork. It's kind of a bit of a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, we do it every year, so it's easy for her.
So if I may ask, are these like regular meetings to?
Yeah, they have a HOA managers meeting.
Well, we could certainly get on an agenda and come and speak at that.
I mean, I think that would be good, a real good thing to do.
Because a lot of you have HOAs in your districts, and we can
But
certainly.
I would say some of the HOAs aren't going to be eligible for this credit, because there's a lot of things, Jared, am I right, they have to do. It's not free money. It's a pain in the tush.
And it also isn't really money, it's
Correct.
a credit. So
It's a credit.
So the HOA, they can submit a credit request based off all the properties, common areas in the subdivision that they get assessed a fee for, and they have BMPs for, stormwater ponds and such.
Right.
So then, just rough numbers, say if they paid $5,000 in stormwater fees throughout the year, and they get a credit and offset $2,500, then that $2,500 goes to the HOA. They can determine if that's passed on as a HOA fee reduction or not, but that's how, it wouldn't be a cash, it would be everybody pays a stormwater utility fee. That's a credit offering back.
And the HOA might just absorb it in the general budget to reduce the annual fund. Your taxpayers generally don't see a refund, because it goes into the HOA general fund, which pays for other things.
Outside of Sun City,
You what?
outside of Sun City, what other community has taken advantage of that?
I don't know that.
I think,
Does anybody know?
I think like Berkeley Hall and maybe some other larger.
I would guess the
It's
big
really going to
boys.
be the larger ones that are master planned and have an engineer from the
Well,
start.
do we keep that on file? Like,
Yeah, I can see if we've got a list. If
we can
that's
get y'all. We can look and get y'all a list if that works.
Anything that we can just help these folks out with, that'll be good.
Yeah, maybe if we had a list of which HOAs
We'll get a
apply.
list of. We'll find what's already out there, and we can certainly come and address this at a meeting, upcoming meeting to the associations of HOAs.
And maybe put on there where all of council people can find the application, which is lengthy and involved. It's not a 2-minute thing. I've seen ours. It's,
So you
Excellent.
guys
Okay, well,
do that?
thank you.
I think just to make sure we're put a check box by this item. So is there a desire from council to explore further moving it from a fee and enterprise fund back to general fund or not?
No.
We've checked the block.
Yeah, we checked that
No,
behind.
that's a definite no.
Don't mess it up, it's working,
Yeah.
right?
Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
We are working on how to simplify the fee calculation, and that will be coming hopefully later in the year for council's review.
I just want to be careful for anybody listening that it is not a credit that goes back to the homeowners. It's to the homeowner association to determine after that. So it's not money in.
Oh, there's Mr. Glover.
Yep. Hello, Mr. Glover.
Yeah, he's okay with it.
He's okay with it, all right.
I think that's thumbs up means good.
Yeah. Okay, thank y'all. All right, next is park and rec fees schedule.
I would clear.
I mean, this will be a brief update. I don't have a fancy presentation, and this was coming from the workshop in, I believe, October, November. Councilman Dawson, you mentioned about the Parks and Rec fee schedule. So this is just an update. Staff is working on making recommendations to council for the fee schedule for Parks and Rec. My understanding is that the fee schedule that is currently in place has been in existence for at least 10 years. So there will be adjustments made to that, especially with Agnes Major and Wesley Felix Community Center, which we're hoping to bring more programming in that. There will be some minimal increases to various programs and facility rentals with the recommendations that staff is working on, and we anticipate to bring that before committee in the next couple months.
Any questions? Yes, Councilman Dawson.
Audra, thank you for the information. I raised the issue and I tried to address the issue because over the years, with the fee policy that the board has established, it has actually made it almost impossible for a lot of the minority children to actually participate in some of our sports activities. And so I would like getting with the board of trying to actually either lower some of the fees for some of the activities, incentive to some of the kids in the rural parts of the area who can't actually afford to participate in a lot of the activities because they don't have the funds.
Right, possibly scholarship opportunities. We can look at that, but this is going to be a recommendation from staff, but we can definitely have those conversations to have those opportunities for children that want to participate but financially just are unable to participate in our programs.
And we don't have anything like that now, do we?
I actually think we do. I know we do for, not necessarily for our programs, baseball, softball, soccer, but for our summer camps, I believe we do, yes. But we can definitely have those conversations when we bring it, what the current fee schedule is and what the recommendation from staff is.
I think there's a lot of people would donate to us. I mean, the YMCA has a scholarship program for things like that and sports, and also their summer camp. So I think there are a lot of individuals or groups would donate to it, maybe. Okay, any other comments or questions? Yes, sir.
I do have two. One, I had a community meeting with a group out in Cusco Island this past Saturday, and one of the things that came up that was unbeknownst to me was one of the internal policies that was developed made it so difficult to actually rent our facilities. They had to drive from Cusco, Judge Island, to Burton Wells, put down $200 deposit, put down the $200 fee, obtain the key, go back, and then utilize the, for the space they reserved, then go back and physically return the key, then wait to get reimbursed the $200 deposit. So essentially, that policy that was put in place, and I don't know if this is true for the Broomfield Creek as well, or all the other community centers that we have, but it effectively rendered them useless because people weren't taking that. They're not going to drive 45 minutes out of their way to go do that one way. So is there a way that we can, I hate to say get with the times, but have online reservation, and then maybe this particular community center, I know we didn't renew the lease, but there's a church right next door. Is there a way we could, if there is a community center that's leased, that's in proximity to another hub, I think this one actually owns it, owns the building, but could we make it easier, maybe an automatic lockbox, or, I mean, if real estate agents can do it, can we figure out a way to update our policies and update access to these things so the community can actually use them?
Sure, and it is an internal policy, and we can definitely have that discussion because we want to make it convenient. Like you said, if they're renting the facility at Broomfield, which is all the way almost to the end of Ladies Island, and then has to go to Burton Wells to pick up the key or drop off the application, that is an inconvenience, and that's not what we want. But we can definitely have those conversations and review. And I will say that staff is reviewing the current policies, but we can have those conversations.
And I know there's been changeover with leadership there, so I just want to make sure that as those discussions move forward,
Yes.
that is on the forefront, especially in conjunction with the modernization of our website and looking at all that. I mean, that can make it so much easier just having online access and reservation. The other thing, I'm reading the title, so forgive me, don't yell at me, I know it's changed, but the resolution to adopt the Passive Parks Department Business Use Policy Application and Fee Schedule. Is there any thought, and I know it's the land preservation now, but I've heard a lot of things from the communities, rumblings from the community about access to our I guess passive parks, whatever you want to call them now. I've heard a lot of rumblings about that fee that was put in place for use of those and the permit associated with it. And in fact, I've heard that schools don't even utilize Fort Fremont anymore because of some of the policies we put in place.
That is part, Chuck can speak on that. This is Parks and Rec, which is separate, but yeah, if they're, I'm sure Chuck can answer those questions.
Yeah, Fort Fremont comes up all the time with ATAX. We give them ATAX money, we give grants, yet schools can't use it, tourist groups can't use it, so without this caveat. So that's come up several times.
Sure. So to say that they can't use it, they have to apply.
To apply, I understand.
Right. So there's a big difference in they can't use it and they have to apply and abide by the rules, right? So the purpose of the business use policy is to make sure that the intended use of rural and critical lands money is what it was collected for. We carry a lot of debt. We have spent a lot of money, taxpayer dollars, with the promise that we're going to make these properties available, but the primary function is preservation. So we want the public to go out, use it, enjoy it, at the same time maintain a pristine environment. The business use policy, the purpose behind that is to ensure that there are limits in place so that it doesn't become overwhelmed with commercial for-profit uses and undermines the whole purpose that we've put out all of these referendums. I think it was 5 referendums over 25 years, and that's the promise that we made to the taxpayer. So if we shift on that so that companies who do tours or whatnot, schools can absolutely use them. They just have to coordinate so that all the schools aren't going on the same day. That's the purpose behind the application. It's not complicated, but there's a purpose behind it. So if we back off of that and just make it available to everybody at whenever they want, it's going to degrade the purpose of maintaining it in a pristine way for preservation, which is the reason we bought it. And then we have sort of for-profit companies making it where folks who want to go out as families, folks who want to just enjoy it as a taxpayer, now are competing with time, and it just becomes something that it was never intended to be. I hope that helps.
So, yeah, it helps. I've asked before, do we have any data on how many people use all these passive parks?
So we don't have clickers to count how many people go to each park on each day. There are some we can tell you how many reservations were made, but again, the measure of success of these properties is not how many people we can pack on them. Right? So when we look at it, if there's a criticism that there aren't enough reservations, I'm not saying there is, but just hypothetically, that's not what our measure of success is. The measure of success is that it is maintained in perpetuity, it is preserved and kept in a pristine state, and that it is available when the general public, who has paid a lot of money to preserve these properties, can go out and peacefully use it. The balance is we have opened them up for business use, but we temper that so that it doesn't become overwhelmed and overrun and become something that's just another commercial use.
So to keep them in pristine shape, I mean, we invest a lot of money in improvements of our pristine environment. I'll take Widgeon Point. Okay? So I've been there twice with my grandchildren, not a soul around. 10 a.m. in the morning. So I'm just saying, how do we know how many people are using this? We're still investing lots and lots of money in, I call them passive parks. And I'm going to shift to, my focus is in recreational facilities. South of the Broad, I've said this 100 times, he said it, she said it. So I just wanted to know, how many people are really using these? Like, I'm going to go to Oakity River Park. Let me just divert there. I can't imagine who's going to use that other than Pepper Hall residents. Really? And we're spending millions over there.
So I don't really want to argue the point, right? But so those are two different things. When you look at Widgeon Point, that was it was purchased with the intent of preservation. The parking lot, the pathways, and the little pavilions that were out there are to allow the public access to that property. If we didn't have that, there would be a gate, it would be wooded, and there would be no access. Mm-hmm. The test of that is not how many people visit every day. Anybody who wants to visit during daylight hours can go. The test is, if you walk through there, there are bald eagles there. There's wildlife there. When you walk through that trail, when you look into the woods, it is in a pristine state. When you walk to the back of that property and you look out over the vista in the marsh, it is protected. There's no other improvement made other than that trail that you walk through. That's the whole purpose of that land and that preservation. Yes, we did spend a lot of money on it, but that was money that we put on a referendum and we collected for the purpose of spending for the preservation of that property. It cost some money to develop the parking lot and the little picnic pavilion and the bird blind, but that money is spent, and that was spent to allow access to the property. So when you look at our other recreation, our active recreation parks, the test there is, yes, we want those to be used every day, all day, to the highest and best use for their intended purpose. Baseball fields. We don't want baseball fields to sit vacant. We want people to use them. That's the purpose for which we develop those. But the passive parks, the passive rural and critical land properties, we made a promise to the constituents when we put the referendum out and they voted for it, that we're going to buy these properties to protect them, keep them in a pristine state, and at the same time provide balance and allow access to those in a limited capacity.
I'll be the bad guy and just say this, and please don't take it the wrong way. This is feedback from the community. There's a perception that this county does not want people to actually utilize those parks, and there's an active push to keep them away from it. That's the perception, for talking to my constituents.
Sure.
And even people south of the Broad, that's the perception.
So I will answer that by saying that we have about a 10-year plan with 12 parks that are ready to be developed, and the only limiting factor is the fact that we have no dedicated funds to open them to the public. What we can't do is just allow people to park alongside the street and say, park in the road right away and feel free to walk through the woods. We have to make it safe, we have to make it sanitary, and it takes money to do that. We have Pineview and some other parks that are that we're ready, right? We're about to go to construction. You're going to see those very soon. But staff has to compete for money. There's no dedicated funding source to provide those access points. So we're doing the best we can with what we have, and the only way that we can open all those lands is to get enough money to improve the areas for parking, put bathrooms out there, make it sanitary and safe by creating pathways. So if it's funded, we can build them, and we can give access to every piece of property that we've purchased under that. But there's just limited funds right now. So we're doing best we can with what we have.
This is more a question for Mike Moore. I know the Spanish Moss Trail puts every now and then the track, where if you step on it, it'll track you. Similar like when the DOT does traffic counts. I wonder if we could do something similar at the parking lot entrance to some of these, just to get an idea.
I mean, we can certainly look at it. I don't know that the Spanish Moss Trail still has it. When I talked to
No,
Dean,
they just do it they don't do it all the time. But
Right.
This would just be like a snapshot type thing.
we could look at doing some periodic snapshots.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something we can take a look at.
Because I've been to Woodson Point, and there's always people there. And last time we were doing some filming out there, Hannah remembers, there was a bird watching group that had come from Columbia, and about 15 people, no, probably 20 people. They were having a great time. I mean, it's a wonderful park for bird
Did they
watching.
get the permit?
Yeah, I think they did. I think they did.
But probably on the weekends, you're going to see higher usage at some of these
Yeah,
than
and
you
when
would
the
during
bald eagle nest is, they're
Right.
Yeah. Mhm.
But again, our goal is to make it available and keep it pristine, not turn it into some kind of
Huntington Island?
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
They hit capacity like all the time.
In my last job, we saw the same thing. You could be very basic, as Chuck pointed out, parking lot, trails, not a lot of improvements, and you give access.
Right.
When you start to go high end on them and add a lot of things, that adds cost.
It has maintenance costs.
So just give them basic access. But I agree with Chuck. You don't want to, if there's no parking lot and there's no trail, and then having the public come on, that can be a problem in terms of liability and quality of experience.
Well, I have two more things, and I'm done. One, going to the Pineview Park. I believe that's going to its third year of being fully funded, because I think it was funded 2 fiscal years ago. My constituents are getting, the reason I put it in the FOIA is because my constituents are getting frustrated that it has not been, it appears to be nothing's done. I know there's been work, there's permitting and things of that nature, but there's a frustration. It was purchased in 2020, and here we are in 2026. That's 6 years. I know funding's an issue and things of that nature, but there's a general frustration in my community that these things aren't moving forward. And then my other point, though, I know there's a competition for other projects and things of that nature. I talked to Mike about this, potentially coordinating some of those properties. If there's not enough funding to actually do the projects, coordinate with DNR and open them up as public hunting lands in conjunction with the county and DNR. And that way you have limited, you clear a section for parking, and then you can issue, let DNR issue the permit to go out there and hunt those lands. And that way, you strike a balance, you save money, you're allowing public access, and then in the off seasons, maybe you can open it up to camping, primitive camping.
Sure, and I'm happy to absorb the criticism of how long it takes. However,
I'm not trying to beat you up on that.
No, it's fine. I mean, we do the best we can with what we have. We have been working on the permitting, right? So yes, we bought it. We have a lot of properties that we have purchased that over 10 years ago that aren't available yet. We apply for A&H tax. We have asked repeatedly for money, not being critical, right? But we compete for the money. So we have to have the money to start the process of permitting, right? If we have the funds available to make them available, we will work to make them available as quickly as we can. It takes about 2 years to get through the whole permitting and planning process to get it to construction. I know we talked about Okeechobee River Park. Okeechobee River Park was part of a development agreement. There's a long history, and I would caution any comparison between Okeechobee River Park and all of our other rural and critical land purchases, because that is a whole different animal. But I share your frustration, and if we had a bigger pot of money, we would develop them and make them available as soon as we could. But the reality is we don't, right? And we compete. I'll give you an example, Pocataligo. That is a beautiful piece of property. There are a lot of people that want to go out there. I want to make it available. It's a big piece of property. If I had $4 million, within 2 years, I could make it something awesome. Right now, it's a beautiful, awesome piece of property, but nobody can go on it because there's no access point. To do that, we have to have the money to start the process. And there are 10 or 12 other properties with plans that are in place. We've made presentations. You know, here's our 5-year, 10-year plan. Here are the list of properties. Here's what we've done. Here's what we want to do. And we have to make application when we go through CIP. It's the process. We have to compete. It's just difficult. So,
well, like I said, if funding's an issue, maybe we can do primitive camping and hunting. You know, coordinate those seasons when people can get out there.
Sure, but what that does, I'm not opposed to that, but when you do a long-term wildlife management area, that ties the property up for a very long time. You don't have accessibility, you don't have restrooms. It's not the be-all, end-all. It just limits it to people who hunt, right? And then it limits the number of people and typically becomes a lottery, just like Donnelly and some others. I've taken my kids out to hunt Donnelly a number of times. And then you've tied that property up where the general populace, especially in an area where we have an older population, can't access it. So there's kind of pros and cons to both of them.
And there are.
High risk, high liability.
Hunting.
Start going hunting on public lands.
There are a couple of green space projects that are adjacent to DNR land that may be coming up, or that might be a possibility. They're not approved yet, but they're coming up.
That's a great point. And green space is a little different because green space, as part of the referendum, park improvements or land improvements, once we buy it fee simple, which we have not done yet through green space, once the county buys it, the ordinance mandates that public have access to it, and you can use the green space money to do that. Where rural and critical only allocated a small portion of the referendum dollars, once that was expended in the first couple of parks, now staff is having to compete annually with our long list of requests, along with all of the other funding requests that come in through the budget process.
Will you be submitting any ATAX requests?
What's that?
ATAX, will you submit any requests?
We do it every year.
Okay, so I haven't seen it on state the last 3 years I've been involved, but you're doing local.
So we tried state for a couple of years, and we were told that that type of development does not put beds in heads, and we stopped putting the application.
It's a new day on the state.
It's in beds.
So if it is a new day and the rules have changed, we're happy to submit it there. But the local A&H tax, we absolutely apply for that every year. That's
yes, Stacy.
Dave, I got a couple guys and some trucks. We'll clear that part.
Got you covered.
You got to get your state permits first, right? That's the hard part.
We'll take care of the rest. We'll save you some money.
Another comment?
So, last thing, you mentioned the green space program for park improvements. Have we applied as a county to the green space program with the parks that are in the queue that don't have funding? Could that be a permissible use of the remaining funds for to improve?
No. So once you buy them in rural and critical, in order to bring them out of rural and critical, you would basically it would be very complicated. So you would have to refund rural and critical because they're restricted funds.
Well, no. What I'm trying to say is, you said there for green space can go for park improvements.
Only for purchases that are made with green space dollars.
Understood. Okay.
Right. So you can't take green space dollars and develop a rural and critical piece of property.
We can use general fund.
You can use general fund. Absolutely. Yeah.
Hey, we're ready to go on to the next item?
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chuck.
There's no questions?
Think so. Next is detention center internal compensation study.
1 weekend, 10 guys, done. Mark knows what I'm talking about. Oh, well.
Yeah,
Tell me it wouldn't work, Mark. Friday through Sunday.
How are you again? So, back on the detention center, we briefly talked about this a few minutes ago. The detention center has a high turnover rate, and we have a very I'd say high percentage of open positions. And since I did a study of the number of positions we had available and the number of, and specifically corrections officers. So we have administrative staff positions. There's 14 staff members in the detention center. They stay full. We have billeted positions. So our sergeants, lieutenants, major, and a colonel, those positions stay filled. The problem we have is with corrections officer. So for us, that is a grade 402 up to that sergeant level. So sergeants are billeted positions, but the progression for a detention center employee, they come in as a trainee. They have 1 year to become certified. They become a corrections officer. And then there's a period of time of education, experience, and time and work. They go from corrections officer to lance corporal to corporal. These are the working hands in the detention center on a daily basis, and this is where our shortfall becomes. And we can, the study that I did back to 2013 shows a constant progression from 2013 and a continuous decline in the number of corrections officers over time. It is an industry-wide problem, so this is not just Beaufort County problem. This exists in federal, state, and local detention centers all across South Carolina, all across the Low Country, really all across the nation. It has become less and less of an attractive career for staff members. Most of that is because of the competition. You begin to look at other places of employment that folks can have also great benefits and good compensation while not being inside that environment. And we have those things, I think, are significant contributors to the steady decline of employees. So over the past 3 years, we have worked very closely with HR and with our recruiters to try and find ways to encourage new employee applications. And we talked about this briefly earlier, that we've had period of times that we've seen a great increase in applications and a great increase in hiring, but the turnover rate is so high because folks, during COVID, we had some ARPA money during that time period. We offered some hiring bonuses. Those hiring bonuses certainly attracted a lot of folks, but they weren't folks that stayed around for a long time. They came in for a short period of time. They realized that this is not the type of work that they wanted to do, and they quickly moved on. And that's why our turnover rate looks so high in the detention center. So although we've done a lot of work to try and improve our recruiting and retention, it's pretty much stayed the same. We have a large number of tenured employees who are dedicated to the work that they do, and they stay on board. And we continue to cycle through newer employees and find difficulty attracting and retaining those employees. Because of that, we did an internal compensation study. The HR staff, Catherine and Amber did a tremendous amount of work and spent a couple of months collecting information. So they put together a very large questionnaire, sent that out to all of our competitors. So this was law enforcement agencies, other detention centers that were county operated like ours, and detention centers that were operated by their elected officials. So we did a lot of comparisons based on this data. So it was a really big spreadsheet that we put together. That what we were looking at is how do we compare to our competitors? Not only law enforcement type agencies and other detention centers, but other workplace. From that, we determined where we thought our starting salaries needed to be more competitive, we're not competitive with our environment, because I think our salaries and our benefits, of course, are very competitive with other agencies. But when you compare that compensation with the work and the environment that you're in, that matters. So we really have to do better to attract those staff members. So what we have is there's a couple of big spreadsheets, and I tried to put this in information that was important to you. What we are seeking is or what we can do right now is increase that corrections officer trainee position. Right now, a trainee position comes in at $24.29 an hour. We would like to, we intend to increase that salary from $24.29 to $27.14 per hour in that pay range. And then when I will show you the pay range scale here in a second. And then from pay range 402 through 414. So these are certified corrections officers. This isn't administrative personnel. These are only those folks in the shift work type or in a certified corrections officer's roles. 402 through 414 increases by a standard 7.2% of their compensation. And then the way Catherine worked that out was that is scalable throughout the step plan. So I'm only showing you what step one looks like, because the spreadsheet would be about this big on that screen and you wouldn't be able to see any of it. But I'm happy to share all of that information with you. This one's pretty hard to see, but what you have on, it would be on your left, is the current pay scale. This is step one, is in that right-hand column, and then the salary for that employee based on 2,080 hours a year is what you see there now. So you see that 401 is that corrections officer trainee at 2,080 hours a year, is right now coming in at 50,523 is where it is. Our number one competitor, local competitor, for a similar role is at $60,000. So what we intend to do is to increase that 401 role in the proposed pay scale would begin that new officer at $27.14, which brings that starting salary to $56,451. And then, of course, the rest of the scale would change appropriately, and I can show you what that looks like. The initial cost for this, we talked about this a little bit earlier. The wages and salaries line item for the detention center currently can absorb this increase in this budget year without any issue. There is currently in that line item, we have used about 44% of that wages and salaries balance, and this isn't counting the fringes. So you can add the 28% to 30% in the fringes. Of course, all these numbers are estimates, because we hired 2 folks yesterday who are in the loop. We also lost 2 folks this week. We lost a more tenured employee and we lost a new employee. So all these change constantly. The impact this year for the rest of the budget year, when I did these numbers, it was a previous pay period, so that's a little less. the number of pay periods we have left in this year and the number of employees we have right now, this increase until for the rest of this fiscal year cost us about $65,000. That's about $8,000 per pay period. And then for the full year with the existing staff, that cost is it's about $212,000, $213,000 would be that annual for those employees. So this is our intent now. We would like to implement that increase now. This is going to help us attract more employees and, more importantly, retain the employees that we have. Our competitors in this type of business, we try to hire experienced officers from other agencies, and they are trying to hire ours. As quickly as we can rob from each other, that is part of the practice. Having the ability to hire experienced officers is critical. When we hire an experienced officer, we're more likely to keep that officer and retain that officer because they know what they're getting into. Someone who comes into the detention center, we start them off with 40 hours of training. Their first week is just doing training. They are slowly introduced into the detention center over the next several weeks, sometimes up to 6 weeks. Depends on the confidence level, which often has to do with the age and experience of a new officer. We pair them with a more experienced officer, and they go through the routine of shadowing another officer through this mentorship period. Even after that happens, once an officer is assigned to a housing unit on their own, they begin to really experience the feel of being in a housing unit and managing a large number of inmates by themselves, and that often becomes uncomfortable. So after some time, they do that for a few weeks, and then they decide, you know what, this really isn't for me. It wasn't so bad when I had a mentor right next to me, but now that I'm on my own, this doesn't work out. So that's why we see a lot of those things. So all of that is to say, here is our opportunity. We did a hard look at our competitors. We looked at a compensation that we have now. We worked directly with HR and I would say negotiated, mostly between myself and Catherine. We met with the county administrator and the finance office, our CFO, and we got to a place that I think is reasonable for us to offer an increase in compensation right now for our staff members to help us improve our retention and recruitment. Questions?
Questions, all right. Ms. Tavernier?
Is this to go forward, or are you retro to January 1?
We would implement at the next starting the next pay period.
This is a 12% increase. Where does it put us in the band of what other people offer? We're in the middle, at the top, do we, you know?
This would put us more towards the top. So if we just look at detention centers, this kind of puts us in top 3 of the state. I think that's pretty competitive, but maybe not quite enough.
Okay, David?
Are we coordinating efforts with people cycling out of the Marine Corps and DOD?
We, I would say yes. We do recruit, and we attend job fairs and things like that. There are military opportunities, so folks that maybe work in a brig or have some of that experience already. The problem is there's so much competition for those employees, and they have opportunities and salaries that we just cannot offer.
I know there's some groups out there that deal with transitional job placement. Maybe we can coordinate with them, especially, run the new numbers.
Yes, sir.
See if we can capture somebody getting out of the Marine Corps.
What does the South Carolina Correctional Department pay for their, because I see there's advertisements on on Interstate 26 going to Columbia.
The last I looked at, their starting salary was $24 to $27 per hour. Some of them will publish an annual hourly rate. We're pretty competitive with them as well. There are some discussion that it's likely that some of those larger agencies are doing the same thing that we are. They're increasing their starting salaries because they are hurting for employees as well.
So what's the next step? Does it go to, Mr. Moore, does it need to go to committee first, or can it come straight to council?
As John said, we have funds available to do that this year. So we could implement it now, and then it would be part of the budget process.
You don't need us to vote on it, in other words.
I don't, unless there's an objection to it.
Can't vote today anyway.
We can't vote
Right.
anyway, but I mean,
So we could implement it and then budget for next year. Go ahead, Pinky.
Part of the budget process.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's what I was asking, if it,
Yeah.
you
So
don't need our approval.
I'll let Pinky comment.
Okay.
Right, when we had discussed this, the detention center, as of, I think, the January vacancy report had, how many, 24, I think? I don't have it in front of me.
It changes a lot. I think today,
But-
I think it's 34.
That sounds about
34.
right. It's in the
Excuse me.
30s.
It's more, it's 34, sorry. We had talked about, in order to implement this mid-year of relinquishing maybe up to 4 vacant positions, and then continuing to budget, because you're continuously telling me I got to find a way to reduce millage, but I'm adding more and more costs. So to be able to do something like that, I think that's something that we need to consider.
Any other
We do
comments?
have to be very careful when we talk about reducing the number of available positions. SEDC requires us to have positions available for a specific ratio. Right now, we're required to have 83 positions, and we already have 79 funded positions. So we need to be really careful as we do that.
Cunningham.
Yeah, Pinky sort of took my first part there. Obviously, we have the budget now because we didn't fill the position. So how much is this going to raise our budget for next year?
The estimate right now for the annual was like 213,000, and that is for the filled positions that we have.
That doesn't even count the vacant ones.
So that's correct. That doesn't include the vacancies.
Nor does it
Really, if you said
include
there's-
fringe.
Or fringes.
So realistically, we're talking $500,000 then.
Could be, yes, sir.
And then it's all well and good. It's nice to say that, but that still doesn't address the issue that you said is the biggest issue. And that's after they're done training, they quit because of that environment. So what are we doing to address the environment aspect to keep them there? Because this is it's more than just a money problem. It's obviously an environment problem and a social problem as well from the outside.
Yes.
So how are we addressing that?
So this is a very difficult problem. Because there are several things that involve this. The facility itself. We've spent a lot of money on the facility trying to make improvements in the facility. Every improvement in the facility benefits the corrections officer. It makes it safer for the corrections officer. There are more electronics that help to limit their task throughout the day. One of the things that is in our budget this year is a system called Guard One. So what Guard One does is an electronic system where the officer carries a small device, and they can go to each of the segregation cells, and they use that device, and they just touch a hotspot or little barcode, whatever you want to call it, on a cell. When they touch that device, it automatically or electronically records the officer, the cell they were, and that inspection. So what that does, right now we do that on paper, and it is a requirement that that officer does that every 30 minutes. So they spend about an hour every shift documenting this schedule. An electronic system like that removes the hours of documenting time and automatically does that. So those are some things that we're doing to help improve the officers, so they're doing less paperwork and able to focus on their jobs some more. Those type of improvements, while they seem like they're small to us, that is critical to an officer that is checking 70 cells every half hour. That's really efficient use of their time and will help in things like that. As you know, we just had our detention center director retired. We are actively interviewing for that role right now. And what we are seeking is a new detention center director with the right leadership skills and the right charisma in order to help change the culture of that environment. It is a very difficult thing. Our detention center employees are dedicated. They take care of one another. They have to. It has to be a family. And we're trying to make sure that we preserve that culture and improve that culture to help retain and attract more employees. The best advertising we can do is to have happy, healthy employees who share those sentiments with other folks and attract more folks in there.
Because I'll be honest, I'm more inclined to invest in the facility to create a better work environment to actually retain people, because it's not a secret, we just talked about it half this day, we offer a lot of perks outside of just salary.
We do.
So throwing money at a problem doesn't always fix the problem. We know that. So at what point is that going to be our main focus? I have no problem with us adjusting this now and talking about it, but one, we're going to have to find $500,000. But two, we have extra funds to put towards this center. If we can make their job easier, that makes the job more desirable, where we throw money at it now, but not a continual amount of money for years to come for next councils and next budgets. So if we have extra resources now to be able to go towards that system, which I don't know, can we even use our general fund for that? Not sure the legalities of what funds we can use, but I know we have excess for, especially from our reserves, we're above what we need. So however we can make that job easier for them, to me, that's more of a better environment. It's the same thing I told the school systems 4 or 5 years ago. You guys can throw money at the problem, but you're still losing teachers because you're not fixing the morale.
Yes, sir. No, we've had the very same conversations for the past 3 years. Yeah. We have the same comment you just made. Throwing money at the problem's not going to solve it. We need to more holistically look at it, and we have exhausted everything else we can do. This is our last resort. And right now is a very important time as we have the leadership change in the detention center. We have invested in the detention center and tried to improve the conditions. One of the next projects, the next capital projects that will go on the detention center is the physical officers' space. The muster room will be upgraded. Their locker rooms will be upgraded. This is very important for morale for the officers' spaces. Agreed. Last year, it was intended to do this first, but last year we had all these emergency repairs and we had to spend tons and tons of money in the housing units. So the housing units are in great shape. We haven't done anything for the officers, so that investment will help, along with our opportunity to find that right leader in that organization. We improve our compensation. We've improved the structure itself, and now we are seeking another leader to continue the positive culture in there. Hopefully, this is the trifecta that helps us reduce those open positions, those vacant positions.
How long are the shifts again?
12-hour shifts.
12-hour shifts.
The average employees working 96 hours a week.
Well, you'd mentioned too. How long is the mentorship part of that?
It depends on the person. A minimum, the mentorship is they have a week of mandatory training that they have to do, and there's some mentorship time in that. Most of the time, it's about 2 weeks that they do the mentorship, but it really depends on the individual. Some of them last much longer, 6 weeks.
So I know you mentioned. Is it a trend that after that mentorship period is over, that shortly thereafter the new trainees leave? Is that kind of the general trend?
Yes, sir. I think generally that's accurate. It really depends on the person. Sometimes we have had officers that come from other detention centers that come to our detention center, and we've heard that you're too strict. You have too many rules. And so they may have come from another detention center that has more lax. But what you see in those detention centers is perhaps more officer injuries, more what we would call code reds, more incidents of violence between inmates and officers. Rules are important in a detention center, even though we're pre-trial.
So are we doing, is it one person, one guard per housing unit? Like, is that the policy for it now?
It depends on the housing unit, and we meet the state minimum standard.
Well, you said that perfectly, minimum. Is that an issue if the mentor, when there's two people in there, if they felt comfortable having each other's back, I guess, and going through that process, is that something we can do to raise our own policy to make sure that at least 2 people are in a housing unit? I know we're short-staffed. I know we're short-staffed, and we're trying to correct that, but I mean, could that be something, looking at the policy? I mean, you know, I remember buying a house and I said, oh, it's to code, and I said, great, the bare minimum.
Right.
You know, we can always go above and beyond that. I know constraints are there, but if people are jumping ship because they're left alone, maybe we can expand that mentor program or get them more comfortable over a longer period of time.
Yes, sir. One of the most important things we can do is focus on officers' safety and inmate safety. It is our job to provide a safe environment for pretrial inmates, and that comes with a ratio of the number of officers per inmates. If we could put 2 officers in every housing unit for every shift, that would be ideal. But right now, we don't have the staffing to do that.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? You're our last one today.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Any last thoughts before we adjourn? No?
So we are going to institute the proposed pay.
Yeah, we'll implement at starting in the next pay period, and then we'll identify the funding source to carry this forward with these pay increases as presented.
So if we implement it the next pay period, then we are already setting up for the budget to increase it 1.2 million. And I'm going to say one more time, everything today was increase, increase, increase. How are we going to keep millage level or reduce it when increase, increase, increase? Where's that coming from? What magic under the May River Bridge or the Broad River Bridge? Is there a treasure chest? I'm very careful. I know we want all these things. I know I get all that, but, you know, some of us have a commitment to reduce millage. I don't care if it's a mill, but we can't do it when everything we talked about today, every single thing I typed was an increase. So I'm just wondering what kind of magic administration is going to bring forward to
Well, I think the magic is what Pinky said, is we may have to deviate from the SCDC standards, but as it is right now, we don't have full staffing anyway, so that may be some risk we need to take.
Well, I'm talking about overall. Everything we talked about today was an increase. Oh, I'm not just talking about detention center.
Well, I mean, these are all things we're going to have to look at in the budget.
You have some magic wand in there?
Yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you hate us right now?
We also
that was one of the tasks you gave us, and we've already identified several offsets that have been discussed previously. So there are other things we're going to look at to address to try to get this to be neutral to reduced mill.
Dawson.
Yeah, and in the process, we have to be mindful of, we have to provide service. People want the service, and the service costs. So we have to balance that with trying to keep the millage neutral and provide the service, and then everything today has been increase. Yeah, but how do we provide if these services are needed, then how do we provide these services?
That is the eternal question, but the average taxpayer just looks at their bill and says, where are you spending my money? I mean, I get it.
I understand it, but we have to make them understand they want the service. And if we are held accountable for providing the services, then there's a balancing act.
So I would tell you, since I answered the questions people called in about the tax bill, we put all where everything goes. Treasurer's office referred all questions to me. I only had 29 people call. 29, folks. That's not.
I had a few too, Tab.
Okay. All right.
I had a few as well.
The most common thing I heard is, why are we giving money to TCL? Why are we giving money to USCB? What is Parks and Rec? I mean, they're asking about all those things because we've never split it out before. So yes, people want every service in the world, but the question is, what do they want to pay for? Therein lies the bottom line.
Well, I would say there are some things that citizens want to pay for and some things that we're obligated to pay for.
Correct.
And some things we're coming up with that we think the citizens want. I mean, let's think about it.
Like?
Who said to hire more of this or that? This is something that we're trying to do to improve what we're doing.
Current mill.
So for
$2.9 million. 2980406.
$29 million per mill.
I think Charleston at they just, it was in the debate, she said they're at 37 mils.
36 and a half mils Charleston charges. We're at 59.5.
What's their mill worth?
Oh, their mill value.
I don't know. She didn't say that, but she threw out the 36 and a
Their
half.
value of a mill is probably exceeds.
Mill value is much
Yeah.
higher than ours.
A lot higher.
It
yeah.
just sounded really good when she threw it out there.
Yeah.
I think this
Checking
current
that
year
before
is
the debate.
2.6, so
I could've
2.9
told
is
you that.
a good increase, 2.67.
Any last thoughts before we adjourn? Thank you, John.
Good, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone today, that Catherine and Chuck and Pinky and Audra. Thank y'all. Thank you, Mr. Moore. Okay, we are adjourned.
Can I talk to Allison?